My name is Laura, and I'm a nurse. After another long day at work, I head home. I'm a little late, like usual. I'm home. Welcome back, I said. When I got home, my daughter Meg was there to greet me. It must be hard for a third grader to wait at home alone every day. I always feel bad for her, but I guess other nurses might envy me, since I work at the local hospital that doesn't have any night shifts. Where's your dad today? I asked. He's not home yet, Meg answered. I feel like I haven't seen him in a long time. Oh, I see. My husband, Stan, works a lot and doesn't come home much. I can't even remember the last time he spent time with us, like eating together or helping around the house. Well, he does spend time with his family. On his days off, he goes to his mom's house to help with things like gardening and cleaning, and he has dinner with her. Stan never shows up for Meg's soccer practices or spelling bee contests, but he always makes time for his mom. This has caused a lot of tension between Stan and me. I'm sorry, honey, I'm sorry you feel lonely all the time, I said. It's okay, you come home every day, Mom, so that's enough, Meg said. Oh, Meg, I hugged her tightly. If we were a normal family, we would spend time together and be happy, no matter how much I apologized. I knew it wouldn't change things. I kept wondering how things got so bad. Then, one day, Stan came home at a normal time, which was very rare, but by then, both Meg and I didn't feel as close to him, and we didn't talk much. We ate dinner quietly, and then Stan suddenly said, "Hey, why don't we go to Hawaii for the holidays?" What? I was shocked. Stan was suggesting a family trip? What was going on? We haven't traveled as a family in a while, he said. I thought it would be a good way to celebrate my mom's 60th birthday, and it could be a nice chance for us to all be together. Once again, he was thinking about his mom. I was frustrated, but when Meg heard about Hawaii, she got excited. We can go to Hawaii. I really want to go, she said. Meg was so happy. It was her first time going to Hawaii, so I understood her excitement, but I wasn't sure I could enjoy a family trip after everything that's happened, especially with my mother-in-law, Kate, there. If the trip was really to celebrate Kate's birthday, Stan should have told me about it years ago, but since Meg wanted to go, I didn't think I could say no. Alright, I guess we can go. It's been a while since we've all been together as a family, so why not, I said. On the day of the trip, Stan and I both had to work, so we planned to meet at the airport. My workday was very busy, and it went longer than expected. I was running late. After work, I rushed to the airport with Meg. We took the bus and finally arrived, but something unexpected happened. They're not here, I said. Stan and Kate weren't at the airport. I looked around, but I couldn't find them anywhere. Where did they go? No one called me, so I tried calling both Stan and Kate. The number you have dialed is either not powered on right now or has no signal, the message said over and over. I was getting frustrated, so I went to ask the airline staff. One of the staff members asked, "Are you Miss Laura Martin?" Yes, I replied, confused. I didn't know how they knew my name, but they handed me a piece of paper. "I was asked to give this to you," the staff member said. I looked at the paper and was shocked by what it said. I couldn't wait any longer. "Stan and I are going on this trip without you. If you're not on time, we're leaving without you. Why don't you just stay here, Kate?" I whispered, shaking with anger. "What is this?" "Mom, what's wrong?" Meg asked, worried. "Oh, it's nothing. It looks like your dad and grandma went ahead without us," I said, trying to stay calm. "So, we can't go to Hawaii?" Meg asked, upset. We can catch up with them and get on another flight," I said, trying to sound positive, but honestly, we didn't have enough money for another ticket. What was I going to do? While I was trying to figure it out, an old man in front of me suddenly collapsed. Without thinking, I rushed over. After being a nurse for so many years, my body just reacted. "Are you okay?" I asked, checking his breathing, but it had stopped. Oh my God. I quickly turned him onto his side to clear his airway. I saw something blocking his breathing, probably vomit. I knew I had to act fast. "Please, someone call an ambulance," I shouted as I began to help. Soon, the ambulance arrived, and the man was taken to the emergency room. The man I helped at the airport woke up and asked, "Was it you who saved me?" "Yes, I did," I said. "You really saved my life, thank you so much. I thought I was going to die." He was feeling better now and could talk. It seemed like there were no major health issues, just the breathing problem that caused him to collapse. "I'm James, and I want to thank you properly," he said. "Oh, it's nothing, I just did what anyone would have done." "That's not true, you saved my life." "Thank you, but really, I didn't do anything special." "By the way, were you traveling somewhere?" he asked. "Yes, I was supposed to go to Hawaii with my daughter, but we missed the flight." "That's terrible, I feel bad for you." "No, it's not your fault," I said quickly, we were already running late. "It was my fault." I was feeling down, thinking we'd have to go home, when James said, "That's a shame, your daughter must have been really looking forward to it. Why not just buy another ticket?" "Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but we don't have enough money for another flight." James looked at me, then said, "Okay, as a thank you, I'll buy the tickets for you and your daughter." "Wait, no, that's too much," I said, feeling surprised. "It's totally fine." He then called over a female staff member and borrowed a phone to make a quick call. After hanging up, he said, "Don't worry about it, I won't be able to feel at peace unless I thank you properly." As we were talking, the paper I had from Stan and Kate fell out of my pocket. I was still holding on to my anger, but we were lucky enough to get on another flight to Hawaii, thanks to James. To my surprise, he bought us business class tickets, which were very expensive. Meg and I enjoyed the flight so much. When we finally arrived in Hawaii, I started to think about where Stan and Kate would be staying, but I hadn't asked them before. At the airport, a man approached us. "Are you Laura and Meg?" he asked. "Yes, that's us, but..." "Nice to meet you." He handed me his business card. It had the name of a well-known company on it. "I heard about you from the chairman of our company." "The chairman? You mean the old man I helped?" I asked, shocked. "Yes, that's right. The man you helped at the airport is the chairman of our company." I couldn't believe it. I had no idea James was the chairman of such a big company. "Now, we'll take you to your hotel, as ordered by the chairman. Please enjoy your stay in Hawaii," he said, leading us to a black limousine. I had never been in a car like this before. "Wow, this is amazing," Meg said, excited to ride in a limousine for the first time. I checked my shoes to make sure they were clean before getting in. The view of Hawaii was beautiful, like an endless summer. I had doubts we'd even make it, but I was so glad we were there. Meg couldn't stop looking out the window. Soon, we arrived at a huge, luxurious hotel. But then I realized something important. "Oh no, I didn't book a room," I said quietly. "Don't worry," the man said, "we've already reserved a room for you on the top floor." "But I can't afford this," I said, feeling uncomfortable. "You don't need to pay, it's all been taken care of," he said. I was amazed. James had arranged all of this for us, and I had no idea how far he'd gone to make sure we were treated like VIPs. We entered the hotel and I was stunned by the room. It was huge, almost like a suite, with an incredible view of the ocean and the sunset. The hotel staff was there to help us with anything we needed. The food was also unbelievable, everything was fresh and luxurious. They even grilled the best steak right in front of us. It was the best meal I'd ever had. Later, Meg and I walked around the lobby, and we heard arguing voices coming from a corner. Meg and I saw a man and a woman arguing with the hotel staff. "Are they?" I asked. "Yes, it's my husband and my mother-in-law," I said. "Hey, what are you both doing here?" I called out to Stan and Kate. They turned and saw us. "What? Why are you both here?" Stan asked, surprised. "We came here as planned," I answered, "but you've done something horrible to us, even though you were the one who suggested this trip." "Well, that's..." Stan looked at Kate like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. It's your fault for being late, right?" Kate said dismissively. "I'm sorry for that, but you didn't need to say that. We should have just stayed home," Stan muttered. Kate didn't seem sorry at all. I couldn't forgive them for what they had done. "By the way, why are you two arguing with the hotel staff?" I asked. "When I tried to check in, they told me to leave," Stan said angrily. "I don't understand," I said, turning to the staff. The hotel staff explained. "I heard that these people left our valued guests behind. That's unforgivable. I was told not to let them stay here." "Oh, I get it now," I said. James had a lot of influence with the hotel. As chairman of a big company, he was someone you definitely didn't want to upset. Stan looked even angrier. What does he mean? Well, it's a long story, but it means he can't forgive you both for leaving Meg and me behind, I said. Stan and Kate looked confused. How would someone at this hotel know about that? Stan asked. Well, I understand why you're asking that, but after hearing what happened, I'm not surprised. Honestly, I think you both deserve it, I replied. I pulled out a business card. This is the card from the man who helped me at the airport. Stan took the card with shaking hands. This is a business card from one of our major clients. Both Stan and Kate went pale as they realized the significance. You mean you know the chairman of this company? Stan asked. Of course I do. I saved him at the airport when he collapsed. That's why he booked our flight to Hawaii and even reserved the hotel room for us, I explained. What? Kate gasped, trembling. What's wrong, Mom? Stan asked, concerned. He's in the same gym club as me. I see him sometimes, but everyone looks up to him, Kate stammered. What a strange coincidence, I said, agreeing with Stan. It felt like the world was much smaller than I realized. I had no idea that Kate knew the chairman, but before I heard it from her, I already knew the truth, because James had told me himself. When I got the new ticket at the airport, James had picked up the paper that had fallen out of my pocket. He looked at me, surprised. Laura, what is this? That, I hesitated. Well, we were left behind by my mother-in-law and husband, I admitted. That's horrible, James said, and unforgivable. But this name? I've seen it somewhere before, James said, looking at the paper. Is your mother-in-law's last name Martin? He asked. Yes, her name is Kate Martin, I answered. What, you know my mother-in-law? I was shocked. Of course I do. She's a member of the gym I go to, James said. She doesn't seem like the type of person who would do something like that, and this is how it happened, I said. I smiled, thinking about it. It's tough, isn't it? You two were going on a trip together, but now it looks like we'll be on our own. I'm going to enjoy the trip with Meg, I added. Kate, why don't you just camp out somewhere here and enjoy the Hawaiian night without a roof over your head? Oh wait, that's terrible, I said sarcastically. You're the rudest person ever, Stan and Kate screamed at me. I turned my back on them, laughing. They're so ridiculous. They throw hurtful words at me, but when I throw them back, they call me rude. Let's go, I said to Meg. Yeah, Meg agreed, taking my hand. As we walked away, I could still hear the argument behind us. Anyway, get out of here. We don't have rooms for you, the hotel staff told Stan and Kate, not backing down. Eventually, Stan and Kate were forced to leave the hotel, and Meg and I enjoyed our trip to Hawaii on our own. With Meg's love for Stan almost gone, we didn't need to care about him anymore. I never expected such a wonderful trip as a reward for helping that old man, but I was so grateful. We truly wanted to thank James for everything he had done for us. The trip ended, and we returned home safely. It was an amazing, refreshing experience, and Meg seemed really happy with it. But what happened to Stan and Kate, who were kicked out of the hotel? It seems that things got much worse for them after they left Hawaii. When Stan came home, he looked exhausted. It turned out that the chairman's orders had been shared with all the hotels in Hawaii. Stan and Kate had to camp out in the wild. They got exactly what the paper said would happen. Stan faced even more trouble when his boss called him into the office and told him that the contract with James's company was about to be cancelled. Kate wasn't treated well by the members of her gym club either. They turned cold toward her, and she ended up leaving the club. The gym was her only hobby, but this whole incident scared her so much that she stopped working out and now spends most of her time watching TV. Stan and I realized our marriage was beyond saving, and we decided to divorce. Meg stayed with me, and I didn't ask for alimony or child support. My income wasn't much different from Stan's, and I was fine supporting Meg on my own. I decided I would never see my mother-in-law again. Looking back, this whole situation felt strange. By accidentally being late at the airport, I ended up helping the chairman of a big company, who happened to be someone Kate knew, and because of him, I got to experience one of the best trips to Hawaii. Maybe it was fate. My relationship with Stan never worked, except for Meg. Our different work schedules caused some of the problems, but I believe things would have ended this way even if I had stayed a housewife. Stan would have always put Kate before us. I have no regrets now. I have the most adorable and precious daughter in the world. I don't need anyone else.
You're single, Samantha. You don't need all this space. My mother, Wendy, delivered the line with a delicate sniff, as if bestowing upon me a profound, albeit slightly inconvenient, truth. We were standing in the kitchen, the one I'd personally designed, right down to the quartz countertops that gleamed under the recessed lighting I'd helped install. My name is Samantha, by the way, and for the last 5 years, all this space, this entire beautifully renovated house, had been my life's work, my savings, my future. Wendy continued, oblivious to the way the air was crackling around me. Penelope and Killian are getting married, you know. Such wonderful news. She beamed, then gestured vaguely towards the ceiling. So, we thought, the main house for them, naturally, and you, dear, can have the attic. It's quite cosy once you clear it out. The attic. A dusty, cramped coffin of a space filled with forgotten Christmas decorations and mouse droppings. That was my reward. My sister, Penelope, drifted in then, a self-satisfied smirk playing on her lips. She was practically glowing, and not just from her new engagement ring, which she made sure to flash at every opportunity. Killian and I were just talking about paint swatches for the master bedroom, she chirped, her eyes flicking towards my master bedroom, the one with the ensuite I'd fought tooth and nail with the contractor to perfect. Something a bit more us, you know. The promises. Oh, the promises they'd made. Invest in the family home, Sam, Dad, Rocky, had said 5 years ago, when the house was a crumbling wreck they couldn't afford to fix. It'll be yours one day, a real legacy. We'll live here for a bit longer, of course, but it's your nest egg. Wendy had cooed her agreement, painting pictures of me raising my own family here eventually. So I'd poured everything into it. My inheritance from Grandma, every bonus, every spare weekend. I'd learned to plaster, to tile, to negotiate with suppliers. I'd manage the entire gut renovation, turning this dilapidated money pit into the beautiful modern home it was now. My home. Or so I thought. The attic, I finally managed, my voice sounding small and distant, even to my own ears. Don't look so glum, Samantha, Wendy said, patting my arm dismissively. It's a perfectly good space, and you'll have your privacy. Penelope giggled. You can pretend you're a bohemian artist up there. It'll be fun. Fun. Right. The shock was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. Then came the heat, a slow, simmering rage that started in my belly and spread outwards, coiling tight. I could feel my hands clenching. I wanted to scream, to rage, to smash the perfect quartz countertop. But then a different thought, cold and sharp, pierced through the red mist. If I exploded now, they'd dig in, play the victims. They'd use my anger against me. No. I let my shoulders slump. I allowed the tears that were genuinely welling, tears of betrayal, of fury, to spill over. But I thought this was going to be my home, I choked out, playing the part of the heartbroken, dutiful daughter. Wendy's expression softened, but not with genuine sympathy. It was more like the look one gives a slightly dim-witted child. Oh, darling, of course, we understand it's a bit of a surprise, but Penelope needs a good start to her married life. You understand family, don't you? Rocky shuffled in then, looking vaguely uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet my eye. It's for the best, Sam. Penelope's so happy. His usual passive agreement, easily swayed by Wendy's iron will and Penelope's batting eyelashes. He was already rewriting history in his head, I could tell, convincing himself this was always the plan. I need a minute, I mumbled, turning away before they could see the ice forming in my gaze. I stumbled up the stairs, each step on the polished oak I'd chosen feeling like a betrayal. The scent of fresh paint, the custom colour I'd mixed for the hallway, mocked me. I reached my bedroom, my sanctuary. The afternoon sun streamed through the large window I'd insisted on, illuminating the built-in bookshelves I'd designed. Penelope wanted to paint this? Over my dead body. Or perhaps over theirs, financially speaking. I walked to my desk, my movements stiff. My laptop was there, but I ignored it. Instead, I knelt and pulled out the bottom drawer, the one that locked. Inside, beneath a pile of old journals, was a thick, professionally bound document. The renovation contract. The one they'd barely glanced at before signing, so eager were they for me to start pumping money and labour into their crumbling asset. I flipped through the pages, my fingers tracing the dense legal jargon Erin, my lawyer friend, had so meticulously crafted. My eyes landed on a particular section, a minor contingency, as I'd casually described it to them at the time. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face, a stark contrast to the tear-stained devastation I performed downstairs. They thought I was just their dutiful, slightly pathetic single daughter, the reliable workhorse. They'd offered me the attic, a dusty coffin for my dreams. I hugged the contract to my chest. They forgot, I whispered to the sunlit room, the rage now a cold, hard diamond of resolve. They forgot I was also their chief investor, and investors, I knew, always expected a return. A week crawled by, a week filled with Penelope's incessant giddy chatter about wedding venues, guest lists, and most gratingly, her grand plans to freshen up the house. "That dreadful grey you chose for the living room, Sam, it's just so drab. I'm thinking a nice cheerful yellow," she'd announced at breakfast, not even looking at me. Killian, her fiancé, mostly nodded along, looking like a man already resigned to a lifetime of agreeing with Penelope. I bit my tongue, offering wan smiles and non-committal hums. Let them think I was still licking my wounds in my generous attic-to-be. Let them get comfortable. Saturday morning, the sun was streaming into the kitchen, my kitchen, highlighting the subtle shimmer in the backsplash tiles I'd spent a whole weekend agonizing over. Penelope was on the phone, squealing about bridesmaid dresses. Wendy was flipping through a bridal magazine, occasionally sighing with contentment. Rocky was attempting to read the newspaper, though his eyes kept darting nervously towards me whenever I moved. I placed a crisp, official-looking envelope on the quartz countertop, right next to Wendy's magazine. "Morning," I said, my voice deliberately neutral. Penelope hung up, her eyes narrowing. "What's that?" "It's for Mum and Dad," I replied, taking a seat. Wendy picked it up, a frown creasing her brow. "What is this, Samantha? More of your feelings?" She made feelings sound like a particularly unpleasant rash. "Not exactly," I said. "It's an invoice." She tore it open. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second. The colour drained from her face. Penelope, curious, leaned over her shoulder. Her jaw literally dropped. Rocky lowered his newspaper, his gaze apprehensive. What in God's name is this?" Wendy finally sputtered, her voice trembling. The bridal magazine slid unheeded to the floor. "It's an itemised bill," I explained calmly, "for the total sum of the renovations. Materials, my contracted labour hours, at the standard professional rate for a project manager and skilled labourer, of course, plus accrued interest, as stipulated in the minor contingency section of our agreement." I paused, letting that sink in. "You see, since the primary condition of my investment, my eventual sole ownership of this property, is being voided by your decision to give the house to Penelope, the contract requires immediate full reimbursement of all my contributions." The sum, detailed meticulously over several pages, was indeed staggering. It represented 5 years of my life, every penny I had, and a fair market rate for the expertise I'd brought to the table. It was the true cost of turning this house from a liability into a highly desirable property. Wendy's hand, holding the invoice, was shaking. This is outrageous! You can't be serious!" "Oh, I'm perfectly serious, Mother," I said, my voice still even. "It's all there in the contract you both signed. Page 7, subsection C, I believe, details the reimbursement clause in the event of unilateral alteration of the primary beneficiary." Penelope, who had gone from confused to incandescent with rage, finally found her voice. "You're doing this to ruin my wedding! You're just jealous!" she shrieked, her face contorting. "You can't stand that I'm happy and getting everything I want. "This has nothing to do with your wedding, Penelope," I said, though a small, uncharitable part of me did enjoy the disruption to her entitled parade. "This is about a legally binding agreement being broken. I invested under specific terms. Those terms are no longer being met." Rocky had gone pale, a sickly grey colour. He was staring at the total at the bottom of the final page, his mouth slightly agape. He finally seemed to be grasping the magnitude of what they'd done, the reality of the piece of paper he'd likely signed without a second thought. "Samantha," he began, his voice hoarse, we never intended." "Intentions are lovely, Dad," I cut in, "but contracts are about what's written and signed, and you both signed it." Wendy slammed the invoice down on the counter. "Don't be ridiculous, Samantha. We're your parents. You can't possibly expect us to pay you for your own family home." Her voice rose, sharp and indignant. "After all we've done for you, the ingratitude." I met her furious gaze, my own cool and unwavering. The mask of the devastated daughter was gone, replaced by the calm demeanour of a creditor. "Actually, Mother," I replied, my voice dropping slightly, carrying the weight of undeniable fact. "According to this legally binding document you both signed, I can, and I do. You have 30 days to settle the full amount." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife, broken only by Penelope's sharp, indrawn breath and the rustle of the invoice as Rocky picked it up with a trembling hand. The cheerful yellow Penelope had envisioned for the living room suddenly seemed a very, very long way off. The fallout was immediate and frankly predictable. Wendy, never one to take responsibility, launched a full-scale smear campaign. Suddenly, I was the villain of every family anecdote, the heartless, grasping daughter holding her loving parents hostage. Aunt Carol called, her voice dripping with disapproval. "Samantha, dear, your mother is so distressed. Surely you can see this is tearing the family apart. Money isn't everything." "No, Aunt Carol," I'd replied, my tone polite but firm. "It isn't, but agreements are. And so is the 5 years of my life and my entire savings I poured into that house based on those agreements." She'd huffed and hung up. Cousin Mark, who'd once asked me for a loan he never repaid, cornered me at the supermarket. "Heard you're trying to bleed your parents dry, Sam. Not a good look." I just stared at him until he shuffled away, muttering. The cold shoulders and judgmental looks became my new normal. It stung, I won't lie, but it also solidified my resolve. They could whisper all they wanted. I had the contract. One evening, my phone buzzed. It was Brooklyn, my older brother. He'd always been a bit of a ghost in family dramas, preferring to keep his distance. I braced myself for another lecture. "Sam, it's Brooklyn." His voice was hesitant. "Mum called. Well, you can imagine." "I'm sure she gave you her version," I said, trying to keep the weariness out of my voice. "Yeah," he said. A pause. "Look, I'm not calling to pick sides, but what exactly happened? Her story was a little dramatic." "So," I told him. I laid out the promises, the years of work, the casual dismissal, the offer of the attic. I told him about the invoice. He listened silently, which for Brooklyn was saying a lot. "Wow," he said when I finished. "They really offered you the attic?" With a straight face, I confirmed. "And this contract, it's legit?" "Erin Phillips helped me draft it. It's ironclad." Erin was my college roommate, now as sharp as a tack lawyer. Another pause. "Okay," Brooklyn said slowly. I get it. That's rough, Sam. Really rough." He didn't condemn me. He didn't offer solutions. He just sounded genuinely troubled by our parents' actions. It was a small crack of light in the wall of family disapproval. Meanwhile, back at the house, which I was still living in, an increasingly awkward situation, Penelope was on a mission to assert her dominance. It started small. My favourite mug, the one I'd had since college, accidentally got broken. The plants I'd carefully nurtured on the windowsill in the kitchen were moved to a dark corner where they promptly began to wilt. Then I came home from work one afternoon to find her in the hallway, a paint roller in hand, a can of garish turquoise paint at her feet. She was painting over the beautiful, intricate mural of a forest scene I'd spent weeks creating on the main feature wall. It had been a labour of love, a focal point of the house. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Penelope didn't even turn around. "Just brightening the place up. This old thing was so depressing." Rage, hot and swift, surged through me, but I remembered my strategy. "That mural is part of the property's current state, Penelope," I said, keeping my tone level. "The property that is currently subject to a significant financial claim." She finally turned, a defiant smirk on her face. "It's going to be my house. I can do what I want." "Not yet, it isn't," I replied. "That evening, Killian found me in the living room. He looked uncomfortable." "Penelope told me about the disagreement," he began, choosing his words carefully. "She's pretty upset." "I can imagine," I said. "This invoice, it's a lot of money, Samantha." "It's the accurate value of my investment," I stated. He shifted his weight. "She said you put a lot of work into this place, and it looks amazing. But her parents, they don't really have that kind of cash lying around, do they?" He was starting to ask the right questions, his brow furrowed with a concern that seemed more financial than familial. The next day, I walked into my bedroom, to find a stack of paint swatches on my nightstand, shades of pink and lavender, Penelope's preferred palette. A little note was tucked under them. "Thinking of these for the master. What do you think? P." The audacity. It was a deliberate provocation. I sat down at my desk, pulled out my laptop, and composed an email. It was polite, almost chillingly so. Subject: potential alterations to property at 12 Maple Drive. Dear Mother, Father, and Penelope. I'm writing to gently remind you that the property at 12 Maple Drive is currently the subject of a significant financial lien, as per the invoice dated date of invoice. Any alterations, redecorations, or changes made to the property prior to the full settlement of this outstanding debt could be construed as damage to the asset securing my investment. This could further complicate the financial resolution and potentially increase the liable sum. I trust we can avoid any such complications. Sincerely, Samantha. I CC'd Erin, and then I hit send, let them chew on that. The whispers and threats were one thing, damaging my collateral was another entirely. The email CCing Erin Esquire Phillips had the desired effect. The amateur redecorating efforts ceased immediately. Penelope's paint swatches vanished from my nightstand. The turquoise splotch in the hallway remained, a monument to her thwarted ambition, but no further brightening occurred. A few days later, the atmosphere in the house, already glacial, dropped another 10 degrees. I heard Wendy on the phone in the kitchen, her voice tight with panic. "But what do you mean, ironclad? There must be a loophole. We're her parents." A long silence, then. "Well, that's just unacceptable." Slam. Apparently their consultation with a lawyer, presumably one cheaper than Erin, had not yielded the comforting dismissal of my claim they'd hoped for. The grim news I gathered from snippets of hushed, frantic conversations between Wendy and Rocky was that my contract was indeed a fortress. Panic, it turned out, made Wendy resort to her oldest trick, emotional blackmail. She cornered me while I was making coffee, her eyes red-rimmed. From genuine tears or strategic onion chopping, I couldn't be sure. "Samantha, darling," she began, her voice wobbling precariously. "How can you do this to us, to your own family? We love you. Don't you love us?" I poured my coffee. "Love isn't the issue here, Mother. A broken agreement and a substantial financial debt are—" "But we can't afford this," she wailed, clutching her chest dramatically. "You'll bankrupt us. We'll be out on the street. Is that what you want?" "What I want," I said, stirring my coffee, "is what I'm owed. What was promised to me and what I worked for. You had options. You could have honoured the original agreement. You chose not to." Her tears abruptly dried up. You're a cold, heartless girl, Samantha. I don't know where we went wrong with you. She stormed off. Next came Rocky, attempting the role of mediator. He found me in the garden, pulling weeds with perhaps a little more vigour than necessary. Sam, he started, looking pained, your mother's very upset. I gathered, I said, yanking out a particularly stubborn dandelion. Look, this whole thing, it's a mess. Can't we find a compromise? Maybe we could give you a smaller amount over time for your trouble? I stopped weeding and looked at him. My trouble? Dad, this isn't about pocket money. This is about my entire investment, 5 years of my life, my future. I quoted him a figure, something insultingly low they'd probably feel was generous. Is that what you're suggesting? He winced. Well, something more manageable for us. No, I said flatly. The amount is the amount. It's not negotiable. My resolve was granite. Their attempts to chip away at it with guilt and pity were only making it harder. Penelope, meanwhile, had escalated from petty vandalism to full-blown meltdowns. I overheard her screaming at Killian on the phone. She's just jealous. She's always been jealous of me. She can't stand that I have you in this beautiful house, and she has nothing. Then a slammed door and sobbing. Killian, to his credit, seemed to be growing quieter and more observant during these episodes. A few days later, a formal letter arrived. Not for me, but for my parents, from Erin Phillips, attorney at law. It was a standard letter of demand, reiterating the debt, the terms, and the 30-day deadline, which was fast approaching. It also politely suggested that any further attempts to alter the property would be met with legal action. The letter sent Wendy into another tailspin. This time she didn't even bother with the tears. She called Erin directly. I wasn't privy to the call, but Erin recounted it later with a sigh. Your mother has a remarkable vocabulary when she's angry, Sam, mostly 4-letter words. She accused me of being in league with the devil, that's you by the way, to destroy her family. Charming, I said, indeed. After she finished her tirade, I presented your counteroffer. Counteroffer? I asked, surprised. We hadn't discussed one. Erin chuckled. Oh, it's not much of one. I told them you were willing to allow them to buy out your share for the full invoiced amount, immediately. Or, she paused for dramatic effect, you would be forced to enact Clause 17b of the contract. Clause 17b, I echoed, racking my brain. The contract was dense. And what, for God's sake, is Clause 17b? Wendy had apparently shrieked down the phone at Erin. Erin's reply, as she told me, was calm and cool. I simply advised her to read her copy of the contract carefully, specifically page 12, paragraph 4. A new wave of frantic energy filled the house. I heard them rustling through papers in the study, Wendy's voice sharp with agitation, Rocky's a low murmur of anxiety. Clause 17b? Even I wasn't entirely sure what it was, but Erin had sounded confident, and a little bit gleeful. The hunt for Clause 17b was on. I could practically hear the frantic flipping of pages from my room upstairs. It was almost comical, picturing Wendy and Rocky, who'd likely never read past the signature page, now poring over the dense legalese Erin had so carefully constructed. Later that evening, the silence from their side of the house was heavy, oppressive. It wasn't the silence of resolution, but the stunned silence of dawning horror. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when Wendy appeared in the doorway. She looked deflated. The usual bluster was gone, replaced by a weary, almost frightened look. Clause 17b, she said, her voice flat. A primary lien. I took a slow sip of my tea. Ah, you found it then. If we default on repayment, she recited, as if reading from an invisible script, after voiding your primary condition of ownership, you have the right to register a primary lien against this property for the total sum, effective immediately. Her eyes, usually so sharp and critical, were wide and unfocused. That's correct, I confirmed. It means I become the primary creditor. The house can't be sold, it can't be transferred. Say to Penelope and Killian, it can't even be significantly refinanced to pull out equity, not until my debt is settled in full. Rocky appeared behind her, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "But that means we can't give it to Penelope." "Not unless you pay me what you owe me first," I said, my voice devoid of triumph, just stating a fact. "And given your reaction to the invoice, I suspect that's not an option you're considering." The realization hit them with the force of a physical blow. They couldn't pay me. They couldn't give the house to Penelope. They were trapped. Their grand plan, so casually hatched at my expense, had run aground on the rocks of my foresight and Erin's legal expertise. Penelope, when she eventually got the news, likely delivered in hushed, panicked tones by Wendy, was apoplectic. I heard her shouting from her room, "What do you mean we can't have the house? It's my house. Killian and I have plans." The sound of something smashing followed. Killian, who had been spending less and less time at the house, was present for this particular meltdown. I saw him later, sitting alone on the porch swing, staring into the distance. He looked thoughtful and deeply troubled. The wedding was just a few weeks away, and his dream house, the foundation of his future with Penelope, was apparently built on a financial sinkhole. He caught my eye as I walked past. "This is complicated," he said. An understatement if I ever heard one. "It didn't have to be," I replied simply. The next day, Wendy approached me again. This time, she was all sweetness and light, a strained, desperate smile plastered on her face. "Samantha, dear," she cooed, holding out a single sheet of paper. "We've been thinking, and we want to make things right. We've spoken to the bank about a small refinance just to get you some money up front, a gesture of goodwill." I eyed the paper suspiciously. "A gesture?" "Yes, if you could just sign this. It's just a formality for the bank, so they know we're all on the same page about, the house." She was trying too hard. Her eyes darted nervously. "I'll have Erin look at it," I said, taking the paper. Her smile faltered. "Oh, there's no need for that, darling. It's very straightforward. Just a simple waiver." "Erin will look at it," I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. I scanned it briefly myself. It was full of convoluted phrases, but the gist seemed to be me relinquishing a significant portion of my claim for a laughably small, one-time payment. A goodwill gesture that would effectively gut my entire legal standing. I emailed a photo of it to Erin. Her reply came back within the hour. "LOL! Seriously? Do not sign this, Sam. This isn't a formality for the bank. It's a blatant attempt to trick you into forfeiting almost everything. They're trying to get you to waive your rights for pennies on the dollar. Nice try, Wendy." Armed with Erin's assessment, I found my mother in the living room, nervously tidying already tidy surfaces. I held up the paper. "A simple waiver, Mother?" I asked, my voice dripping ice. "Or an attempt to defraud me out of hundreds of thousands of dollars?" Her face crumpled. The fake sweetness vanished, replaced by a cornered animal's desperation. We need some breathing room. We don't know what else to do." "You could try honesty," I suggested coldly. "You could try honouring the agreement you signed. But this?" I shook the paper. "Did you really think I was that stupid, Mother? Did you really think after everything I'd fall for such a cheap, transparent trick?" She had no answer, just stared at me, the fraudulent document fluttering in my hand like a captured moth. The game was getting uglier, and they were getting more desperate. The attempted deception with the waiver was the last straw. My patience, already worn thin, snapped. The simmering rage I'd kept carefully banked flared into a cold, decisive fury. They weren't just dismissive and entitled, they were actively trying to cheat me. "Erin," I said into the phone, later that day, "they're not going to do the right thing, are they?" "Doesn't look like it, Sam," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "They're panicking, and panicky people do stupid things. That waiver was amateur hour." "So, what's next?" I asked. "Do I just wait for them to default on the 30-day notice so the lien kicks in?" "We could," Erin said, "or we could give them one final opportunity to see reason, and if they don't take it, we escalate." "Escalate how?" "There's another clause," Erin said, a hint of steel in her tone. A rather elegant one, if I do say so myself, but first the ultimatum. The next morning, another crisp envelope from Erin Phillips, attorney at law, landed on their kitchen counter. This one contained a formal, legally drafted agreement. It acknowledged the full debt, outlined a structured repayment plan, one I knew they couldn't possibly afford, with hefty monthly instalments starting immediately, and set a non-negotiable deadline of 48 hours for their signatures. It's their last chance to do this the hard way, but still on some kind of terms, Erin had explained. If they sign, they admit the debt, and we have a clear path to enforcement if they miss even one payment, if they don't sign. She'd let that hang in the air. The house descended into a maelstrom of hushed arguments and frantic phone calls. Penelope's wedding plans, once a source of joyful chatter, were now a ticking time bomb. Invitations had gone out, deposits had been paid. Her dream wedding was teetering on the brink of their financial abyss. I overheard a particularly vicious argument between Penelope and Wendy. "You have to fix this, Mother," Penelope shrieked. "Killian is asking questions. He's talking about postponing. Do you know how humiliating that would be?" "What do you expect me to do, Penelope?" Wendy retorted, her voice raw with stress. "Wave a magic wand and make hundreds of thousands of dollars appear?" Then came the inevitable. They cornered Killian. I wasn't there, but Penelope recounted it to me later in a tearful, blame-filled rant, inadvertently giving me all the details. Apparently, Wendy and Rocky, in a moment of supreme audacity, had suggested that Killian, should contribute to paying me off. "You're going to be part of this family," Wendy had reportedly said. "You'll benefit from the house too." Killian, according to Penelope, had just stared at them. Then he'd asked a few pointed questions about their overall financial situation, the mortgage, their savings. The answers, or lack thereof, clearly hadn't reassured him. The final confrontation happened that evening. I was in my room trying to read, but the raised voices from downstairs were impossible to ignore. Killian's tone was different this time, no longer hesitant or merely troubled. It was firm, disillusioned. "I can't marry into this mess, Penelope," I heard him say, his voice carrying clearly up the stairs. "This isn't just a disagreement. This is something else. Your parents promised Samantha the house, then tried to give it to you, and now they're trying to trick her out of her money, and you expect me to bail you out?" "But Killian, I love you. We have plans," Penelope wailed. "Plans built on what, Penny? Lies? Deceit?" His voice was cold. "This wedding, this house, it all feels tainted now. I need to step back. The wedding is off. At least until this is handled. Properly. Ethically." A door slammed. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs. The front door opened and closed with a decisive thud. Penelope's scream of pure, unadulterated rage and despair echoed through the house. It was a sound I won't soon forget. Her dream life, meticulously constructed on a foundation of entitlement and her parents' willingness to sacrifice my future for hers, was crumbling before her eyes. The 48-hour deadline for the ultimatum passed in a blur of Penelope's histrionics and my parents' stunned, terrified silence. No signed agreement appeared. They hadn't even acknowledged it. My phone rang. It was Erin. "Well, Sam," she said, her voice calm and professional, but with an undercurrent I recognised. The thrill of the legal chase, the satisfaction of a well-laid plan coming to fruition. "They didn't sign." "No surprise there," I said, a strange sense of calm settling over me. The anger was still there, but it was a focused, purposeful energy now. "So, it's time," Erin continued. "Are you ready to bring the house down? Literally and figuratively?" I took a deep breath, looking around the beautiful room I had poured my heart and soul into, the room they had tried to casually snatch away, the room Penelope had wanted to paint pink. "I've never been more ready," I said. The meeting was set for the following afternoon in the living room. The one Penelope had wanted to paint a cheerful yellow. Erin was by my side, a leather briefcase resting on her lap, radiating an aura of calm, professional competence that seemed to suck all the bluster out of my parents before a word was even spoken. Wendy, Rocky, and a red-eyed sullen Penelope sat opposite us on the sofa I'd chosen for its clean lines and durability. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and a heavy sense of dread. They knew this wasn't going to be a pleasant chat. "Thank you for meeting with us," Erin began, her voice polite but firm. "As you know, the deadline for signing the proposed repayment agreement has passed. Samantha has therefore instructed me to proceed with the remedies outlined in the original renovation contract." Wendy bristled. "We know about your lien, Miss Phillips. You can't force us to sell." Erin smiled faintly. "Ah, but the lien, Mrs. Grant, was merely Clause 17B, a preliminary measure. We are now moving to Clause 21, the dissolution clause." "Dissolution?" Rocky croaked, his face paling further. Penelope shot him a venomous glare, as if this was somehow his fault for not magically producing the money I was owed. "Indeed," Erin continued, opening her briefcase and withdrawing a copy of the contract, already tabbed to the relevant page. "If you recall, or perhaps if you read it for the first time now, the renovation of this property was structured as a joint venture. Your initial contribution was the existing property in its, let's say, pre-renovated condition. Samantha's contribution was the entirety of the capital for the renovation, plus her skilled labour and project management, all meticulously documented and valued." She slid a summary sheet across the coffee table, a breakdown of my financial input versus their estimated equity in the house. Before I'd touched it, the disparity was stark. My numbers dwarfed theirs. "The contract clearly states," Erin went on, her voice cutting through the stunned silence, "that Samantha's primary benefit and intended outcome from this joint venture was the eventual sole ownership and residency of the improved asset, this house. By unilaterally attempting to dissolve her stake and assign that primary benefit to a third party, Penelope, without due compensation as per Clause 17, you have triggered Clause 21, irreconcilable partner dispute and default." Wendy opened her mouth, then closed it again. Even she seemed to recognise the inescapable logic. "And Clause 21, Erin delivered the final blow, stipulates that in such an event, a court-appointed third-party administrator will oversee the immediate forced sale of the asset, this house, at current market value." Penelope gasped. "Forced sale? You can't!" "Oh, we can, dear," Erin said, not unkindly, but with absolute finality. "It's right here, signed by your parents. The proceeds from the sale will then be distributed according to the percentage of total investment. Given Samantha's documented financial and labour contributions, which significantly outweigh the initial assessed value of the property pre-renovation." She let the implication hang in the air. The silence that followed was profound. It was the silence of utter, uncomprehending devastation. "So, what does that mean?" Rocky finally whispered, his voice barely audible. "It means," I said, speaking for the first time, my voice steady, "that the house will be sold, and after the original mortgage is cleared and any fees are paid, the remaining profit will be split. Based on my investment, I will receive the vast majority of the proceeds. You will be left with, well, significantly less, likely not enough to buy anything comparable. You will, in all probability, be looking for a rental." Wendy stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. Then it crumpled. Great, shuddering sobs racked her body. This wasn't the strategic crying of earlier. This was the real, ugly grief of someone who has lost everything and knows it's their own damn fault. Rocky just sat there, speechless, looking 20 years older than he had an hour ago. Penelope, however, found her voice. It rose in a screech. "You bitch! You've ruined my life, my wedding, my house. I hate you! I hate you!" She lunged forward as if to attack me, but Erin simply raised a hand, a silent, effective barrier. "I think this meeting is concluded," Erin said calmly, standing up and closing her briefcase. "You'll be hearing from the appointed administrator's office regarding viewing schedules and the sale process very shortly." We walked out, leaving them amidst the wreckage of their greed and entitlement. A week later, the for sale sign went up on the lawn, a bright, cheerful sign advertising open houses. I drove past slowly, parking across the street. Wendy, Rocky, and Penelope were standing on the porch, staring at it. Their faces were a mixture of horror, disbelief, and a dawning, terrible understanding. I allowed myself a small, tight smile. It wasn't a happy smile, not exactly, but it was a deeply, profoundly satisfying one. "The attic, you said, Mother?" I murmured to the empty car. "I hope you find one with a view." The view from the bottom looking up can be very illuminating. The house sold astonishingly quickly. Turns out a meticulously renovated property in a decent neighbourhood, priced to move by a court-appointed administrator, is a hot commodity. The closing was swift, handled entirely by Erin and the administrator. I didn't have to see my parents or Penelope again through the process, which was a blessing. The wire transfer hit my account a few days after. The numbers on the screen made me blink. After all debts were cleared, including the original small mortgage my parents still had, my share was substantial. More than enough for a very fresh start, considerably more than I'd even dared to hope. The administrator, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Albright, had ensured top market value. My meticulous record-keeping of every receipt, every hour, had paid off spectacularly. Their share? Well, let's just say after their portion of the remaining mortgage and fees, it wasn't much. Enough for a security deposit and first month's rent on a small, run-down apartment on the other side of town, I heard. The kind of place they used to sniff at when driving through less desirable neighbourhoods. Wendy, I was told by a reluctant Brooklyn, was a shadow of her former self. The imperious matriarch had crumbled. She barely spoke, just stared blankly at the peeling wallpaper of their new, cramped living room. Rocky was deeply depressed, finally understanding the full weight of his passivity and Wendy's manipulations. He'd apparently tried to apologise to Brooklyn, muttering something about not seeing and letting things go too far. Brooklyn hadn't offered him much comfort. And Penelope? Oh, Penelope. Her fairy tale had imploded. Killian was long gone, having wisely dodged a cannonball, not just a bullet. The wedding was a non-event. She'd had to get a job, a real one, with a name tag and an hourly wage at a local department store. The indignity I could only imagine was crushing. She tried sending me a few guilt-tripping texts, full of woe is me and how I'd destroyed her happiness. I read the first one, felt a flicker of something that might have been pity if she hadn't been so relentlessly awful, and then I blocked her number. Some bridges are best left as ashes. Brooklyn maintained very sporadic, cautious contact. A text here and there. He never explicitly said, "You did the right thing," but his tone, the way he asked how I was doing, spoke volumes. He acknowledged, in his own quiet way, that I'd done what I had to do. He was navigating the awkward space of being related to them and understanding me. With my newfound capital, I didn't buy another old house to pour my soul into. No, I bought a sleek, modern condo downtown. High ceilings, huge windows, a balcony with a killer city view. It was clean, bright, and entirely mine. No shared history, no ghosts of broken promises, just potential. I hired movers for the few things I'd taken from the old house, my books, my clothes, the contents of my actual bedroom, not the attic. The rest I let go. Standing on my new balcony, a glass of crisp Sauvignon Blanc in hand, I looked out over the glittering cityscape. There was no regret, not a shred. They had sown the wind, and they had reaped the whirlwind. It wasn't about malice, not anymore. It was about consequences. The satisfaction of my meticulously planned revenge was a clean, sharp burn cauterizing old wounds. I felt liberated, powerful. Yes, I'd lost a family, or at least the illusion of one I'd clung to for too long, but in their place I had found myself, my strength, my worth, my ability to not just survive betrayal, but to architect its downfall. Calmer, I mused, wasn't some mystical force. Sometimes it was just a well-drafted contract and the courage to enforce it. A soft breeze ruffled my hair. I raised my glass. To new foundations, I whispered, toasting the city, the future myself. They wanted to relegate me to the attic. Instead, I demolished their castle and built my own empire from the foundations they tried to steal. This whole ordeal, as painful and ugly as it had been, taught me the true, unshakable value of self-worth and the cold, hard, and ultimately satisfying price of betrayal. And you know what? The view from up here was spectacular.
The silence in the nursery was louder than any scream I was holding back. My name is Lillian, and just 6 weeks ago, holding my newborn daughter Leah was the purest joy I'd ever known. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, her milky breath on my cheek. I thought my heart would burst with love. Aidan, my husband, had tears in his eyes when she was born. We were supposed to be happy. We were supposed to be a family. Now, a thick, grey fog seemed to have rolled into my life, muffling all the joy. It started subtly, a creeping exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix, a worry that gnawed at the edges of my thoughts. Then it became a monster, whispering terrible things in the quiet moments. What if I drop her? What if I'm not good enough? What if I hurt her by mistake? The thoughts were like shards of glass in my brain. I loved Leah so fiercely it terrified me. "You're just tired, Lil," Aidan would say, his smile a little too bright, a little too forced. It's normal. All new moms feel overwhelmed. His mother, Maren, moved in the week after Leah was born, supposedly to help. Her help felt more like a constant, suffocating audit of my every move. "Oh, Lillian, dear, are you sure you should be holding her like that?" she'd coo, already reaching for Leah. My Aidan always liked to be held more securely. Or, is she crying again? Perhaps she's not getting enough from you. When Aidan was a baby, I always had an ample supply. Her eyes would flick down to my chest, then back to my face with a look I couldn't quite decipher, but it made my skin crawl. Every suggestion, every helpful comment chipped away at the fragile confidence I was trying to build. I'd find myself standing over Leah's crib, heart pounding, convinced I was doing everything wrong. The simple act of changing a diaper became a monumental task, my hands shaking. Maren would often materialise beside me. "Here, let me. You look like you're about to fall apart, dear." Aidan started spending more time at work or decompressing with friends. "Maren's got things covered here, right?" he'd say, already halfway out the door. "You girls just bond." But I wasn't bonding. I was drifting, lost in a sea of anxiety and self-doubt. Maren's presence became a constant reminder of my perceived failures. She'd hum happily while rocking Leah, a perfect picture of maternal bliss, while I sat on the sofa, feeling like an empty shell. "You know, Lillian," Maren said one afternoon, her voice syrupy sweet as she bounced Leah on her knee. "Aidan was telling me about your grandmother's trust. Such a wonderful thing she did for you and the baby. You must be so relieved to have that security, especially now when you're not quite yourself." I just nodded, the fog in my head too thick to process her words properly. The trust my grandmother Annabelle had left for me, and for any children I might have, was substantial. It was meant to be a safety net, a gift of love. Now, even the thought of it felt heavy. My friends called, their voices bright and cheerful. "How's motherhood? Isn't it just the best?" I'd mumble something non-committal, unable to voice the darkness that was swallowing me. How could I explain that sometimes I felt nothing but a terrifying void where joy should be? They'd think I was a monster. Maybe I was. Last night I couldn't sleep. The intrusive thoughts were particularly loud. Leah was asleep in her bassinet beside our bed, a tiny, perfect angel. Aidan was snoring softly beside me. I slipped out of bed, desperate for some reassurance. Anything to make the horrible feelings stop. I tiptoed into the living room, my laptop in hand, planning to search for postpartum depression symptoms, to see if what I was experiencing had a name, if it was treatable. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I sat on the sofa, the laptop screen illuminating my tear-streaked face. As I typed "feeling like a bad mother" into the search bar, I heard a floorboard creak in the hallway, followed by Maren's hushed voice from the kitchen. She must have gotten up for water. I paused, not wanting her to find me like this. Her voice was low, conspiratorial. Yes, he's asleep. She's been erratic all day. Crying spells, then just staring into space. A pause. Don't worry, Aidan. Dr. Fuller said these things take time to document properly. Another pause. Then her voice dropped even lower, laced with something that sounded chillingly like triumph. It's working. Just a little longer, and everyone will see she's not fit. The trust fund is as good as ours. The laptop slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the rug. The trust fund is as good as ours. The words echoed in the suffocating silence of the living room, sharp and cold, slicing through the fog in my head. My breath hitched. It couldn't be. I must have misheard. My mind, already a tangled mess of anxiety, was surely playing tricks on me. I stumbled back to the bedroom, my heart hammering against my ribs. Aidan was still asleep, oblivious. I slid under the covers, shivering despite the warmth of the room. Sleep was impossible. Maren's words, her tone, replayed over and over. Everyone will see she's not fit. The next morning, the world felt tilted, unreal. Maren was in the kitchen, humming as she made coffee, Leah gurgling contentedly in her arms. The picture of domestic bliss was obscene. "Morning, dear," Maren chirped, her smile unwavering. "Sleep well?" I couldn't meet her eyes. "Fine," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. When Aidan came downstairs, I waited until Maren took Leah into the nursery to change her. "Aidan," I began, my voice trembling. "Last night I heard Maren on the phone. She was talking to you." He looked up from his toast, a flicker of something. Surprise? Annoyance? In his eyes before his expression smoothed into one of concern. "Oh? What about Lil? Was everything okay?" She said you were talking about Dr. Fuller, and about me not being fit, and about the trust fund. The words felt like poison on my tongue. Aidan put down his coffee cup slowly. He walked over to me, taking my hands. His were warm, steady. "Lillian, honey," he said, his voice gentle, patient. "You know you haven't been yourself lately. The PPD, it can make you imagine things, make you paranoid. You were probably half asleep, dreaming." "No, I wasn't dreaming." I pulled my hands away. I heard her, Aidan. She said it was working, and that the trust fund was as good as ours. He sighed, a look of deep hurt spreading across his face. "Lil, that's a terrible thing to accuse my mother of. To accuse me of. Do you really think we'd do something like that? We're worried about you, that's all. Dr. Fuller is someone Mom knows, a psychiatrist. We thought it might be good for you to talk to someone, given how much you're struggling." Tears welled in my eyes. Was he right? Was my mind so broken that I was inventing these monstrous plots? The PPD made everything feel distorted. "But she sounded so gleeful," I whispered, desperate for him to understand, to deny it in a way I could believe. Maren re-entered the kitchen just then, her smile faltering as she took in the scene. "Is everything all right, dears?" Aidan ran a hand through his hair. "Lillian had a bit of a scare last night, Mom. She thinks she overheard you saying some upsetting things." Maren's face crumpled into an expression of profound concern. She rushed to my side, taking my arm. "Oh, my poor girl. What did you think you heard? You know, this deep depression can cause such vivid delusions. Aidan and I were just discussing how worried we are, how much we want to help you get better." "The trust fund?" "We were only saying how fortunate it is that you and Leah have that security, especially now." Her hand on my arm felt like a vice. Her words, so reasonable, so caring, made me feel even crazier. They were a united front of placid concern, and I was the hysterical, delusional one. I mumbled an apology, shame washing over me. I'm sorry, I'm just so tired, my head's all mixed up." "Of course it is, dear," Maren cooed, patting my arm. "You just need rest. And perhaps a chat with Dr. Fuller wouldn't be such a bad idea, for your own peace of mind." I retreated, the fog thicker than ever, my own sanity feeling like sand slipping through my fingers. But beneath the confusion, a tiny, cold spark of suspicion remained. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Over the next few days, I tried to push Marin's words away, to believe Aidan, but I started noticing things. Husbands and wives have patterns, little routines. Aidan's were changing. He'd end phone calls abruptly if I walked into the room. He started asking casual questions about Grandmother Annabelle's trust. "Just curious, Lil, who's the executor? Do you have copies of all the paperwork?" Claiming he wanted to help manage things, given my state. "You've got enough on your plate with Leah and everything else," he'd said, his eyes avoiding mine. One afternoon, while Aidan was supposedly at the hardware store and Marin was napping, I was looking for a spare charging cable in his bedside drawer. My hand brushed against something unfamiliar. Tucked beneath a pile of socks was a sleek, new burner phone. My blood ran cold. Why would Aidan need a secret phone? With trembling fingers, I turned it on. There was only one number in the recent calls list. My heart stopped. It was logged under a single entry. Dr. Alfred Fuller, Psychiatry. The burner phone felt like a live grenade in my hand. Dr. Alfred Fuller, Psychiatry. Not just a casual recommendation from Marin, but a secret contact on a hidden phone. The tiny spark of suspicion ignited, burning away a patch of the suffocating fog. They weren't just worried, they were plotting. A wave of nausea hit me, followed by an icy rage I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Leah, my beautiful, innocent daughter, who they wanted to use as a pawn to get their hands on money. A primal, ferocious protectiveness surged through me, so strong it almost choked me. They thought the PPD had made me weak, a broken toy they could easily discard. They had no idea. The next day, while Marin was helpfully taking Leah for a walk, "You need some quiet time, dear. You look so stressed," I slipped out. I went to an electronics store across town, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and grim determination. I bought the smallest, highest quality, voice-activated recorder I could find. It was expensive, but it was an investment in my daughter's future, and my own. My mission began. I became a ghost in my own home, a silent observer. The PPD still clung to me, a heavy cloak of sadness and anxiety, but now there was a purpose beneath it. I had to fight, not just the darkness in my mind, but the very real monsters in my house. I started placing the recorder in strategic locations. Under the sofa in the living room when I knew Aidan and Marin would be talking, tucked behind a plant in the kitchen, sometimes even in the diaper bag if Marin was taking Leah out and Aidan was home. I'd retrieve it when they were occupied, my hands shaking as I transferred the audio files to a secure folder on my laptop, which I now kept password protected and hidden. The recordings were horrifying. "She's definitely getting worse," Marin's voice, crisp and satisfied. "Did you see how she just stared at the wall for 10 minutes this morning?" Aidan's reply, weary but complicit. "Dr. Fuller said we need more specific examples. Things that sound genuinely alarming. We need to make sure everyone sees it." "Don't worry, son," Marin soothed. "I'll make sure of it. We just need to keep emphasizing her fragility, her inability to cope." They discussed exaggerating my symptoms, twisting my words, coaching each other on what to say to family and friends who called. They talked about their meetings with Dr. Fuller, how he was advising them on the best way to present the case for incompetence. Each recording was another nail in their coffin, another piece of evidence. I also started a secret journal, a simple notebook hidden under my mattress, meticulously noting dates, times, specific incidents, and cross-referencing them with the recordings. Who said what, when, where, every detail, no matter how small. One evening, I called my younger sister Jade. We hadn't been close for a few years, a stupid argument creating a rift that neither of us had bothered to mend. But she was family. Maybe she would believe me. "Jade, it's Lillian." "Lil? Wow, hi, everything okay? Marin called a few days ago, said you were having a really rough time with the baby." Her voice was hesitant, laced with a skepticism that stung. "Jade, I need to talk to you. It's about Aidan and Marin." I tried to explain, to tell her what I suspected, what I'd heard. "Lillian," she interrupted, her tone shifting from hesitant to concerned in a way that mirrored Marin's. "Are you sure you're all right? Marin said you've been a bit paranoid. Maybe you should talk to that doctor she mentioned. It sounds like you're under a lot of stress." My heart sank. Marin had already gotten to her, poisoning the well. "Jade, please, you have to listen to me." "I think you need to rest, Lil," she said gently but firmly. "Call me when you're feeling more yourself, okay?" The line went dead. I was truly alone in this. The isolation was crushing, but it also hardened my resolve. If no one would believe me, I'd make them see. I'd gather so much proof they'd have no choice. A few days later, I was reviewing the latest recording. Maren was speaking to Aidan, her voice low and urgent. "Lucille Fowler is coming over for tea tomorrow afternoon. I've been telling her how concerned we are about Lillian's episodes. Aidan, I need you to be here. And just before Lucille arrives, I want you to try and, well, you know, say something that might upset her. We need Lucille to witness one of her outbursts. It'll be much more convincing if she sees it for herself." My blood ran cold. They were planning to provoke me, to stage a breakdown in front of a family friend Maren had been grooming. The recorder in my hand felt like my only weapon. The next afternoon, the air in the living room was thick with forced pleasantries. Lucille Fowler, a woman I'd known vaguely for years through Maren, sat perched on the edge of the armchair, her eyes darting towards me with a mixture of pity and apprehension. Maren was pouring tea, her movements graceful, her expression one of saintly concern. Aidan hovered nearby, looking suitably grave. "Lillian, dear, are you feeling a bit better today?" Maren asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I forced a weak smile. "Yes, thank you, Maren." Inside, I was a coiled spring of fury and anxiety. I knew what was coming. Just as Maren had coached him, Aidan chose his moment. As Lucille was mid-sentence, describing her prize-winning roses, Aidan turned to me, his voice loud enough for Lucille to hear clearly. "Lillian, did you remember to call the paediatrician about Leah's rash? You know, the one you were so frantic about yesterday. Or did that slip your mind too?" His tone was accusatory, condescending. It was a deliberate jab, designed to make me look incompetent, forgetful. The rash was a tiny milk spot Maren had pointed out, which I'd already dabbed with cream. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. "I took care of it, Aidan," I said, my voice tight. "Oh, good," he said, with an exaggerated sigh of relief. "One less thing for us to worry about, eh, Maren?" He winked at his mother. Maren patted my hand. "He's just worried, dear. We all are." She gave Lucille a significant look. Lucille nodded slowly, her gaze lingering on me. I could see the judgment forming in her eyes. I wanted to scream, to expose them right then and there, but I held my tongue, clinging to the image of the recorder silently capturing their charade. I excused myself, claiming Leah needed me, and escaped upstairs, my heart pounding. Later that night, after Maren and Aidan were asleep, I listened to the recording of Lucille's visit, and then to other files I hadn't yet had a chance to review thoroughly. And then I heard it. A conversation between Aidan and Maren from a few days prior, one I'd only skimmed. Aidan's voice was tight with a desperation I hadn't heard before. "I don't know what else to do, Mom," Vinny called again. "He's not going to wait much longer. If I don't get him that 20 grand by the end of the month..." His voice trailed off, but the fear was palpable. "Aidan, we've been over this," Maren said, her tone sharp. "The trust is the only way. Once Lillian is out of the picture, legally speaking, we'll have access. You'll be able to pay Vinny and whoever else you owe. Just stick to the plan. Dr. Fuller is confident. Gambling debts, $20,000. It wasn't just about greed then. Aidan was cornered. This wasn't opportunistic. It was a desperate, calculated move to save his own skin. The revelation didn't lessen his betrayal. It amplified it. He was willing to destroy me, to steal our daughter's inheritance, to pay off a bookie named Vinny. The next morning, armed with this new, sickening knowledge, I made a call. I found a lawyer online, Ms. Stacey Chapman, specialising in family law and custody battles. Her website projected strength and competence. I booked a consultation, my voice surprisingly steady. A few days later, I sat in Ms. Chapman's office, a sleek, modern space that felt worlds away from the oppressive atmosphere of my home. I laid it all out. The PPD, Maren's suffocating presence, Aidan's gaslighting, the overheard conversations, the burner phone, Dr. Fuller, and finally the gambling debts. I played her a few of the most damning recordings. Ms. Chapman, a woman in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes, listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, silent for a long moment. "Mrs. Jenkins, Lillian," she said finally, her voice firm but kind. What you've described, what I've heard, it's unconscionable, and frankly, it's criminal. You've done incredibly well to gather this evidence under such duress. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost made me weep. Someone believed me. I'll take your case, Ms. Chapman stated. We need to continue gathering evidence, every conversation, every incident. Document everything. They're building a case against you. We need to build an irrefutable one against them. I left her office feeling a sliver of hope for the first time in months. The fight was far from over, but now I wasn't alone. That evening, Aidan seemed more agitated than usual. He paced the living room while I fed Leah. Maren watched him, a frown etching her features. She's too quiet, Aidan muttered, gesturing towards me. It's like she's given up. It's unsettling. Maren nodded slowly. Perhaps. Or perhaps she's just sinking deeper. Either way, you're right. We need to accelerate things with Dr. Fuller. It's time to push for a formal competency hearing. The sooner this is settled, the better. My blood ran cold. They were misinterpreting my quiet resilience, my focused evidence gathering as a sign of surrender, and they were about to escalate their attack. The official-looking envelope arrived a week later. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Court summons. Petition for a competency hearing and temporary guardianship of Leah Jenkins, filed by Aidan Jenkins and Maren Jenkins. The words swam before my eyes. They were actually doing it, citing my dangerous mental state and inability to care for a minor child. Attached was a preliminary report from Dr. Alfred Fuller, filled with clinical jargon and twisted interpretations of my PPD symptoms, painting me as a paranoid, delusional wreck on the verge of a complete breakdown. The reality of potentially losing Leah, of having her ripped from my arms by these two vipers, hit me with the force of a physical blow. The fog I'd been fighting so hard to keep at bay threatened to engulf me completely. My anxiety spiked, the intrusive thoughts returning with a vengeance. For a few terrifying days, I could barely function. Holding Leah was the only thing that anchored me, her warm little body a shield against the encroaching darkness. Maren, sensing my distress, ramped up her campaign. She was constantly on the phone, her voice dripping with sorrow as she recounted my latest episodes to anyone who would listen. She just stares blankly for hours, you know. And the things she says, so disconnected from reality. We're terribly worried about Leah's safety. She even called Jade again. My sister, to her credit, sounded less convinced this time. Maren called. Lil! Jade told me when I managed to get her on the phone, away from Maren's prying ears. She was very dramatic. Said you accused her of trying to poison your food now. I never said that, Jade, I cried, horrified. She's twisting everything. She's lying. I know, Jade said. And for the first time, I heard a note of doubt in her voice about Maren, not me. Actually, I saw you with Leah at the park last week, just for a minute. You looked tired, but you looked like a mum. Not like the raving lunatic Maren describes. A small seed of hope sprouted. Maybe Jade was starting to see. Ms. Chapman was a rock. This is their move, Lillian, she said during an urgent phone call. It's aggressive, but we anticipated it. The report from Dr. Fuller is biased and based on hearsay provided by Aidan and Maren. We fight it with facts, with your recordings. Don't let them break you. Focus on Leah. Focus on the truth. Her words helped. I clung to them like a lifeline. The upcoming hearing loomed, a terrifying precipice. I continued to record, to document, driven by a desperate, primal need to protect my daughter. Every hushed conversation, every manipulative tactic went into my evidence folder. One evening, Maren was in the kitchen, on the phone with Dr. Fuller. Her voice was low, but I'd become adept at anticipating these calls. I'd left a tiny recorder tucked into the fruit bowl on the counter earlier that day. She was discussing strategy for the hearing, her tone confident, almost gleeful. Yes, doctor, Aidan will emphasise the incident with the dropped bottle. And I'll testify about her increasing paranoia, her refusal to let anyone else care for Leah for more than a few minutes. It all paints a very clear picture. After she hung up, she left her phone carelessly on the counter while she went to the bathroom. My heart leaped into my throat. This was a risk, a huge one, but I had to see. I darted into the kitchen, snatched her phone, and quickly scrolled through her recent texts. There it was, a short exchange with Dr. Fuller. Marin. He's preparing the final affidavit. Very strong. You'll be pleased. Dr. Fuller. Excellent. The preliminary hearing is just a formality. With your testimony and Aidan's, custody should be straightforward. My fingers fumbled as I tried to take a picture of the screen with my own phone. Just as I snapped the photo, I heard the toilet flush. Marin was coming back. I shoved her phone back onto the counter, spinning around, trying to look casual just as she walked in. Lillian, what are you doing in here? Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. Just getting a glass of water, I stammered, my heart hammering. My hand, holding my own phone, was hidden behind my back. She stared at me for a long moment, then shrugged. Well, try not to wander around in the dark. You might fall. I escaped, my breath catching in my throat. That was too close, far too close. But I had it. Another piece of the puzzle, another link in their chain of deceit. The text message was damning. The text message from Marin's phone burned a hole in my digital pocket. It wasn't just Dr. Fuller's complicity. It was his chilling confidence. Ms. Chapman had been digging into Dr. Fuller's background, and a few days after my close call with Marin's phone, she called with a bombshell. Lillian, we've found something significant about Dr. Fuller. Ms. Chapman's voice was grim. He's not just some random psychiatrist Marin found. He was a medical school colleague of Marin's late husband, Aidan's father. And more importantly, public records show Marin bailed him out of a serious financial mess about 10 years ago. A failed private clinic, significant debts. He owes her. Big time. It clicked into place. This wasn't just professional misconduct. It was a deeply personal debt being repaid. Dr. Fuller wasn't just helping a concerned mother. He was beholden to Marin, willing to risk his entire career to settle an old score, or more likely, to avoid whatever leverage she still held over him. The conspiracy was deeper, darker, and more rotten than I could have imagined. Aidan and Marin must have sensed my quiet determination, my refusal to crumble completely. Or perhaps Ms. Chapman's initial responses to their court filings had them spooked. Whatever the reason, they escalated their tactics, resorting to a level of cruelty that still makes me sick to my stomach. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Marin had offered to watch Leah for an hour so I could take a bath. You look exhausted, dear. A nice long soak will do you wonders. Her solicitude was, as always, cloying and false. I was wary, but the idea of a few moments alone, submerged in hot water, was too tempting. I had also by now taken to placing a small, motion-activated baby monitor with video and audio recording capabilities in Leah's room, another layer of protection. I drew the bath, my ears straining for any unusual sounds. Leah was napping in her crib. Marin was supposedly tidying the kitchen. After about 20 minutes, just as I was starting to relax, I heard a strange thud from downstairs, followed by Marin's theatrical gasp. "Oh my goodness, Lillian! Lillian!" I scrambled out of the tub, grabbing a towel, my heart instantly pounding. I raced downstairs, dripping water, to find a scene straight out of a horror film. Leah's bouncer seat, which had been safely tucked in the corner of the living room, was now at the very top of the basement stairs, teetering precariously. Marin stood at the bottom of the main staircase, hand to her mouth, eyes wide with feigned shock. Aidan was suddenly there too, appearing from the kitchen, his face a mask of alarm. "What happened?" I shrieked, rushing towards the basement door. I don't know," Marin stammered. "I just came out of the kitchen and saw it. She must have. You must have left her there, Lillian. Oh, thank God, she didn't fall." Aidan grabbed my arm. "Lillian, how could you, leaving her like that, right by the stairs?" His voice was a low growl of accusation. "I didn't! I would never!" I cried, looking wildly from the bouncer to their faces. Leah was still asleep in her crib upstairs. I'd checked before my bath. This was a setup. A monstrous, cold-blooded setup. Before I could even process the full extent of their depravity, the doorbell rang. Two stern-faced women in official-looking attire stood on the doorstep. "Child Protective Services," one of them announced. We received an anonymous call about an infant left in a dangerous situation. Terror, cold and absolute, seized me. They had staged this, then called CPS on me. They were trying to manufacture irrefutable proof of my negligence right before the hearing. For 2 agonising hours, the CPS workers interviewed me, inspected the house, and spoke with Aidan and Maren, who played their roles as concerned, horrified family members to perfection. I was numb, barely able to speak, the world tilting crazily around me. This was it. This was how I lost her. Then, a lifeline. As the CPS workers were preparing their notes, I remembered the baby monitor. "Wait," I said, my voice hoarse. "There's a camera in Leah's room. It records." Hope flickered. I prayed it had caught something, anything. We all trooped upstairs. I fumbled with the app on my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type my password, and there it was. The motion activation had caught Maren. Clear as day, the footage showed her tiptoeing into the living room while I was in the bath, picking up the empty bouncer seat, carrying it to the top of the basement stairs and carefully positioning it. Then she'd walk back towards the kitchen, out of frame, presumably to discover it. The CPS workers watched the footage, their expressions hardening. They exchanged a look. "Mrs. Jenkins," one of them said to Maren, her voice devoid of warmth, "would you care to explain this?" Maren turned white. Aidan stared, speechless. The investigation was closed almost immediately, with apologies for the distress caused. But the terror of those few hours, the visceral fear of having Leah taken from me due to their lies, almost broke me. It was their most vicious attack yet, a desperate gamble to secure their victory. The court date was set for the following week. Ms. Chapman was furious when I told her about the CPS incident and showed her the baby monitor footage. "This is good, Lillian. Horrific, but good for our case. It shows their desperation, their willingness to commit fraud." She paused. "We have a strong case with the recordings, the financial motive, Dr. Fuller's connection to Maren, and now this. But," she added, her voice sobering, "court is unpredictable. And Maren and Aidan, they seem unnervingly confident. We need to be prepared for anything." The courtroom was cold, sterile, and suffocatingly quiet. I sat beside Ms. Chapman, my hands clenched so tightly in my lap my knuckles were white. Across the aisle, Aidan and Maren sat with their lawyer, looking the picture of concerned, aggrieved relatives. Maren dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Aidan stared straight ahead, his jaw set in an expression of solemn responsibility. Dr. Fuller sat behind them, looking professional and grave. The hypocrisy was nauseating. Their lawyer began, painting a grim picture of my supposed mental decline. He called Aidan to the stand first. Aidan recounted, his voice thick with feigned emotion, instances of my erratic behaviour, my deepening paranoia, my inability to cope with the basic demands of motherhood. He spoke of my delusional accusations against him and his mother. Each lie was a fresh stab to my heart, but I met his gaze, letting him see the cold fury in my eyes. He faltered, just for a second, before looking away. Then Maren took the stand. Oh, Maren was a performer. Tears streamed down her face as she described her heartbreak at watching me deteriorate. She recounted fabricated incidents of me forgetting Leah, of wild mood swings, of nonsensical ramblings. "All we want is for Lillian to get help," she sobbed, "and for Leah to be safe." The judge, a woman with a stern but unreadable expression, listened impassively, occasionally making notes. Finally, Dr. Fuller testified. He spoke with calm authority, using medical terms that made my PPD sound like a raging psychosis. He referenced his thorough assessment, his grave concerns for my stability and for Leah's welfare if left in my care. He recommended immediate intervention and temporary guardianship for Aidan and Maren. He was smooth, convincing, and utterly despicable. I felt a knot of dread tighten in my stomach. They were so plausible, so polished in their deceit. Then it was Ms. Chapman's turn. She stood, calm and composed, a stark contrast to the melodrama that had just unfolded. "Your Honour," she began, "we will demonstrate that this petition is not born of concern, but of a calculated malicious conspiracy to defraud my client and seize control of her child and her inheritance. A murmur went through the small public gallery. Aidan and Maren exchanged a nervous glance. Ms. Chapman started with Dr. Fuller. Dr. Fuller, you testified that your assessment was based on direct observation and information provided by Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. And you stand by your professional opinion that my client is unfit? Regrettably, yes. Ms. Chapman then presented the evidence of Maren's financial bailout of Dr. Fuller years ago. Doctor, isn't it true that Maren Jenkins provided you with a significant sum of money when your private clinic failed, effectively saving you from financial ruin? Dr. Fuller paled. He stammered, That was a personal matter, unrelated. Unrelated, Ms. Chapman pressed. Or did it perhaps create a debt, a sense of obligation? His composure began to crack. He avoided the judge's gaze. Then came the recordings. Ms. Chapman set up a small speaker. Your Honour, I would like to play a series of audio recordings, lawfully obtained by my client in her own home. The first recording crackled to life. Maren's voice, coaching Aidan. Say something that might upset her. We need Lucille to witness one of her outbursts. Aidan flinched as if struck. Maren's eyes widened in disbelief. Ms. Chapman played another, Aidan and Maren discussing the trust fund. Just a little longer, and everyone will see she's not fit. The trust fund is as good as ours, Maren gasped audibly. Her lawyer shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honour. This is inadmissible. On what grounds, counsellor? The judge asked, her voice sharp. The recordings were made in the petitioner's own home, where she has a reasonable expectation of privacy to record conversations she is party to or can overhear. Overruled. Proceed, Ms. Chapman. One by one, the damning clips played. Their plotting, their admissions of fabricating incidents, their discussions about manipulating Dr. Fuller, Maren's gloating, Aidan's desperate talk of his gambling debts to Vinny. The courtroom was silent, save for their recorded voices weaving a tapestry of their treachery. Aidan's confident smirk had long since vanished, replaced by a sickly green pallor. He stared blankly ahead, defeated. Maren began to tremble, her face contorting in a mask of rage and panic. Dr. Fuller looked like he was about to be physically ill. Miss Chapman then presented the baby monitor footage of Maren staging the scene with the bouncer seat at the top of the stairs, followed by the CPS report clearing me. She presented the text messages between Maren and Dr. Fuller. When the last piece of evidence had been presented, a heavy silence filled the room. The judge looked from the evidence to Aidan, then to Maren, then to Dr. Fuller. Her expression was no longer unreadable. It was thunderous. Maren finally snapped. She's lying! She's crazy! She faked all of it! She shrieked, lunging forward before her lawyer restrained her. Aidan just sat there, a hollow shell. The judge banged her gavel. Order! Mrs. Jenkins, control yourself, or I will have you removed. Her gaze, like chips of ice, settled on Maren, then Aidan, then Dr. Fuller. I have heard the testimony and reviewed the evidence presented by both sides. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in, and frankly, I am appalled. The evidence of a deliberate, calculated, and cruel conspiracy presented by the respondent is overwhelming and deeply disturbing. My breath caught in my throat. Ms. Chapman gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. The judge continued, her voice ringing with authority. I am now ready to deliver my ruling on the petition for competency and guardianship. Furthermore, her eyes narrowed, I will be addressing the significant collateral issues this hearing has brought to light regarding potential perjury, fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The judge's words hung in the air, heavy and final. This court finds no evidence whatsoever to support the petitioner's claims regarding Lillian Jenkins's competency or fitness as a mother. In fact, the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates Ms. Jenkins to be a victim of a malicious and calculated campaign of gaslighting and manipulation. A wave of relief so profound washed over me that I nearly sagged in my chair. Ms. Chapman's hand was a firm anchor on my arm. Therefore, the judge continued, her gaze sweeping over Aidan and Maren, the petition for a competency hearing and temporary guardianship is dismissed with prejudice. Lillian Jenkins will retain sole legal and physical custody of her daughter, Leah Jenkins. Sole custody. The words were a balm to my raw nerves. Leah was safe. She was mine. Furthermore, the judge's voice hardened, this court is issuing immediate, permanent restraining orders against Aidan Jenkins and Maren Jenkins, prohibiting any contact with Lillian Jenkins or Leah Jenkins, direct or indirect, for a period of no less than 5 years. Maren let out a strangled sob. Aidan simply stared, his face ashen. And now, the judge said, her eyes fixing on the trio of conspirators, we turn to the more serious matters raised by the evidence. The recordings, the fabricated CPS report, the clear collusion with Dr. Fuller. This court cannot ignore what appears to be a blatant attempt to defraud Ms. Jenkins and pervert the course of justice. She picked up a sheaf of papers. I am referring this entire case file, including all submitted evidence and transcripts of testimony, to the District Attorney's Office for immediate investigation into potential criminal charges. These may include, but are not limited to, conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, filing a false police report, and in the case of Dr. Fuller, severe medical malpractice and ethical violations that will also be reported to the State Medical Board. Dr. Fuller visibly slumped, his career flashing before his eyes and turning to ash. Maren looked like she might faint. Aidan finally seemed to grasp the enormity of what was happening. A tremor ran through him. Their confident smirks from the beginning of the hearing were long gone, replaced by the stark terror of impending doom. The judge banged her gavel. Court adjourned. The aftermath was swift and brutal for them. The district attorney's office moved quickly. Aidan and Maren were arrested within days, charged with multiple felonies. The news of their scheme and Aidan's gambling debts spread like wildfire through our community. They became pariahs. Aidan, without access to my grandmother's trust, and now facing hefty legal bills and likely prison time, was financially ruined. Vinny, I imagined, would not be pleased. Maren's carefully constructed facade of the grieving, concerned matriarch shattered, revealing the venomous manipulator beneath. Dr. Fuller's licence was suspended pending investigation, his reputation irrevocably destroyed. I walked out of that courtroom exhausted, hollowed out, but with Leah's future secure in my hands. The fog of postpartum depression, which had been so cruelly exploited, began to lift, slowly but surely, as the immediate threat receded. I found a therapist, a real one, who helped me process the trauma and the lingering shadows of PPD. Jade was waiting for me outside the courtroom, her face etched with remorse. "Lillian, I am so sorry," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I should have believed you. I should have been there for you." I just nodded, too drained for anger. "Let's go home, Jade." She became my rock in the weeks that followed, helping with Leah, listening without judgment, her presence a quiet apology that I slowly began to accept. The trust fund, Grandmother Annabelle's legacy of love, was safe. It would provide for Leah, for us, a security that Aidan and Maren had so desperately tried to steal. I didn't forgive them. I don't think I ever will. Their destruction was the direct consequence of their choices, the karmic price for their cruelty and greed. My revenge wasn't a fiery outburst, but the cold, methodical dismantling of their lives with the truth they tried so hard to bury. The scars of their betrayal remain, a permanent reminder etched onto my soul. But they are also a testament to a mother's strength, to the lengths I went to protect my child and reclaim my sanity. My future, once a terrifying, murky unknown, is now clear. It's mine, and Leah's, to build on the ashes of their deceit. And we will build it beautiful.
"She'll never figure it out. She trusts you too much." Savannah's voice, a low, confident murmur laced with something that sounded like a chuckle, drifted up the stairs. My hand froze on the banister. I'm Cora, and that was my sister-in-law, Savannah, talking to my husband, Caden. My husband. The words echoed in the sudden, chilling silence that followed her statement. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. I was just coming down for a glass of water, the house quiet and dark. But their voices, hushed in the kitchen, snagged my attention. Caden's reply was too low to catch, but Savannah's next words were clear. "Exactly. Just keep doing what you're doing." My heart hammered against my ribs. Keep doing what? What wouldn't I figure out? I retreated silently, my throat tight, the need for water forgotten. Back in our bedroom, the king-sized bed felt vast and cold. Caden eventually came up, sliding in beside me with a sigh, smelling faintly of the expensive soap Savannah always used. He didn't touch me. He hadn't, not really, in weeks. Before that night, life had been, well, normal. Or what I thought was normal. Caden and I had been married for 5 years. He was charming, ambitious, the kind of man who owned every room he walked into. I'd always thought we were happy. Lately, though, things had shifted. His late nights at work became more frequent, stretching into the early hours. "Big project, babe," he'd say, kissing my forehead, his eyes already distant. You know how it is. I tried to be understanding. His business was demanding, but the excuses started to feel thin, like worn fabric. "Another client dinner?" I'd ask, trying to keep the doubt from my voice. "Yeah, this one ran super late. Old Mr. Henderson loves to talk." He'd shrug, already unbuttoning his shirt, avoiding my gaze. And then there was Savannah, Caden's older sister. She was always around, a constant presence in our lives, especially recently. She'd pop over unannounced, usually when Caden was working late, her face a mask of sisterly concern. "Just checking in on you, sweetie," she'd say, her eyes scanning our living room, lingering on the slightly dusty coffee table. "Caden's so swamped, poor thing. You must get lonely." Her support always came with a little sting. If I ever dared to voice a sliver of my unease, a tiny worry about Caden's absences, she'd tilt her head, a small pitying smile playing on her lips. "Oh, Cora," she'd say, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're being a bit paranoid, don't you think? He adores you. Men just get stressed with work." Or, "You're so sensitive, honey. Maybe you need a hobby, something to take your mind off things." One evening, after Caden missed our anniversary dinner for a last-minute emergency meeting, I broke down a little. "I just feel like he's pulling away," I confessed to Savannah, tears pricking my eyes. She patted my hand, her touch cool. Now, don't go inventing problems. Caden is a provider. That's what good husbands do. You should be proud of him, not suspicious." She even managed a little smirk. "Honestly, Cora, sometimes I think you look for things to worry about." Caden, when I tried to talk to him, would echo her sentiments, though more gently. "Babe, you know I love you. Savannah's right. I'm just under a lot of pressure. Can we not do this tonight?" He'd look tired, put upon, and I'd feel a fresh wave of guilt. Were they right? Was I just being needy, insecure? I started to watch myself, to analyze my own thoughts and feelings. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was paranoid. The doubt began to creep in, a slow, insidious poison, making me question my own judgment. Caden and Savannah were so aligned, a united front. They'd exchange these knowing glances, little smiles that didn't include me. It made me feel like an outsider in my own life. The night I overheard them, that whispered exchange in the kitchen, it wasn't just the words themselves that chilled me. It was Savannah's laugh. It was the casual, almost gleeful way she said, "She'll never figure it out." It confirmed that tiny, persistent voice in the back of my head that had been whispering, "Something is wrong." My trust in Caden, once a bedrock, suddenly felt like sand shifting beneath my feet. The cold dread that settled in my stomach that night wasn't just fear. It was the horrifying realization that the people I should have been able to trust the most might be actively working against me. And Savannah, with her saccharine concern and cutting remarks, seemed to be right at the center of it. Savannah's words, "She'll never figure it out," became a relentless echo in my mind. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. My nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying every recent conversation, every dismissive glance from Caden, every condescending smile from his sister. I had nothing concrete, Just that sickening snippet of conversation and a growing chasm in my gut. Caden's excuses for his absences became almost comical in their vagueness. Just a quick networking thing. He'd text hours after he was due home. Or, client dinner ran super late, heading back now, would ping on my phone close to midnight. When he did materialize, he'd offer a tired smile and a peck on the cheek, already halfway to the shower, washing away. What? The scent of another woman? The guilt? "You okay, babe?" he asked one morning, noticing me staring at him as he knotted his tie. "You seem jumpy." "Just tired," I lied, forcing a smile. "Didn't sleep well." "You should try to relax more," he said, patting my shoulder before heading out. "Maybe Savannah can take you out for lunch or something. Get your mind off things." As if on cue, Savannah's visits ramped up. She'd appear at the door with a bright, false cheerfulness, a gourmet coffee in hand for me. "Thought you might need a pick-me-up," she'd chirp, settling onto the sofa like she owned it. Her eyes, though, held that familiar pity. "Poor Cora," she said one afternoon, watching me listlessly flip through a magazine. "You really do need to find a hobby. All this moping around isn't good for you. Or for Caden, for that matter. He worries, you know." "Does he?" I asked, my voice flatter than I intended. "Of course he does. He just wants you to be happy." She paused, then added, "And, you know, less intense about things." The implication hung in the air. Less suspicious, less questioning. I felt a flare of anger, but I swallowed it down. What could I say? I had no proof. Accusing them based on a half-heard sentence would just make me sound unhinged, confirming their narrative that I was paranoid. So, I started looking. When Caden was in the shower, his phone would be on the nightstand. My hands would shake as I picked it up, my heart pounding. But it was always frustratingly clean. Call logs were often empty or showed only calls to his office or Savannah. Texts were bland, generic. "Running late. Pick up milk? Love you?" It was like he knew I might look, or maybe he was just incredibly careful. Or maybe a tiny, hopeful part of me whispered I really was imagining things. But then I'd remember Savannah's laugh, that chilling confidence. "You seem so stressed lately, Cora," Savannah remarked during another check-in. She was examining a framed photo of Caden and me from our honeymoon, a slight frown on her face. "It's not good for your complexion. Maybe you should try yoga. Or meditation." "Maybe," I said, my voice tight. I wanted to scream at her, to demand what she meant, what she and Caden were hiding. Instead, I just felt a wave of despair. I was starting to feel like I was losing my mind, trapped in a fog of suspicion and self-doubt, with Savannah as my ever-present smug tormentor. One Saturday, Caden announced he had to go into the office for a few hours. "Emergency server issue," he said, already dressed in casual clothes that looked more suited for a relaxed brunch than a tech crisis. "On a Saturday?" I asked. "Yeah, sucks, I know. Don't wait up for lunch." He kissed me quickly and left. The house felt suffocating. I paced, restless and agitated. I needed to do something. Anything. I decided to tidy Caden's home office, a space I rarely entered. He always said he liked to keep his work separate. As I dusted his large oak desk, I idly pulled open a deep drawer, one he usually kept locked but had apparently forgotten. It was mostly filled with old files and stationery, but tucked way in the back, almost hidden beneath a stack of outdated financial reports, was a small, sleek jewelry box. It was dark velvet, expensive looking, from a high-end boutique I didn't recognize. Certainly not a place Caden would ever think to shop for me. My breath caught. With trembling fingers, I lifted the lid, empty. My stomach dropped. It wasn't the style he'd ever buy for me. Too modern, too flashy. And it definitely wasn't an anniversary or birthday gift he'd forgotten to give me. Those dates had long passed. A cold certainty washed over me. This box hadn't been for me. So, who was it for? And where was the jewelry now? The empty jewelry box became my silent obsession. I put it back exactly where I found it, deep in Caden's desk drawer, but its image was seared into my brain. It was a tangible piece of something, even if I didn't know what that something was yet. The vague unease I'd been living with sharpened into a specific, gnawing question. Who was he buying expensive jewelry for? I started paying closer attention to our finances, something Caden had always handled with an air of, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it." I logged into our joint credit card account online, my hands clammy. At first, it was just the usual bills, groceries, gas. But then, I started noticing charges at high-end restaurants I'd never been to, boutiques I'd only window shopped at. They were often categorized vaguely: client entertainment, business gifts. One charge, for a significant amount at a lingerie store known for its risque items, was labeled office supplies. Office supplies? My blood ran cold. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I called Eliana, my best friend since college, the one person I knew wouldn't think I was crazy. "Eliana, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice trembling as soon as she answered. "It's about Caden." We met for coffee, and the words just spilled out. The late nights, Savannah's condescending support, the overheard conversation, and finally, the empty jewelry box and the suspicious credit card charges. Eliana listened patiently, her expression growing more concerned with every detail. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Cora, I am so sorry you're going through this. And no, you are not paranoid. Your gut is screaming at you for a reason." "But what if I'm wrong?" I whispered. "What if there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for all of it? And what if there isn't?" Eliana countered gently. "You deserve to know the truth. You need to dig deeper. Have you checked any shared devices? Cloud accounts? Sometimes people get careless." Her words sparked an idea. Caden was always meticulous about his phone, but what about other things? We had a shared family cloud account for photos, mostly of holidays and family gatherings. I hadn't logged into it for ages. That night, after Caden was asleep, snoring softly beside me, I crept out of bed and went to the study. I logged into the cloud account on our old desktop computer. Nothing unusual in the shared folders. Then, on a whim, I checked the linked devices. There was Caden's phone, his work laptop, my phone, and an iPad I didn't recognize. He didn't own an iPad, or so I thought. My heart began to race. Eliana had also mentioned social media. Caden had a Facebook profile, very professional, very curated. But Instagram? He always said it was for kids and influencers. I typed his name into the Instagram search bar. Nothing but his official, rarely used work-related account. Then I tried variations, nicknames, old email addresses. Nothing. I was about to give up when I remembered something Savannah had said months ago, a throwaway comment during one of her visits. She'd been scrolling through her phone, laughing at something. "Oh, just Caden being ridiculous on his secret Insta," she'd said, then quickly changed the subject when I asked what she meant. At the time, I'd dismissed it. Now, it felt like a vital clue. What kind of pseudonym would he use? I thought about his hobbies, his old college nickname. Then it hit me. His prized possession was his vintage sports car, a silver Aston Martin. He jokingly called it his Silver Bullet. I typed Silver Bullet 77 into Instagram. Bingo, a private account. The profile picture was a close-up of a man's hand, wearing a very familiar watch, Caden's, resting on the steering wheel of his car. My breath hitched. I clicked follow request, knowing it was a long shot. Then I remembered Savannah's comment. I went to her public Instagram profile, scrolled through her following list. And there it was, Silver Bullet 77. She was already following him. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely control the mouse. If Savannah was following him, maybe she'd tagged him in something, or he'd tagged her. I clicked on Savannah's photos, scrolling back, looking for any connection. And then I saw it. A group photo from a charity gala a few months prior. Caden was in it, looking dapper, and tagged, almost invisibly small on his shoulder, was Silver Bullet 77. I clicked the tag. Because Savannah was following him, and he was following her back, I could now see his posts. My world tilted. It was filled with photos. Caden laughing, Caden raising a champagne flute, Caden on a beach I didn't recognize. And in almost every picture, he was with another woman, a pretty brunette, younger than me, looking up at him with adoring eyes. They were kissing in one, her arms wrapped around his neck. Another showed them clinking glasses on a restaurant patio, the distinctive logo of one of those expensive restaurants from the credit card statement visible on the menu. And then, the comments. Under a picture of them at a concert, Savannah had written, "You two look so happy." Under another, of them hiking, she'd commented, "Living your best life, bro. So deserved." The woman. I squinted at the screen. She looked vaguely familiar. I racked my brain. Where had I seen her before? Then it clicked. Holly Lowe. She was a junior marketing associate at one of Caden's biggest client companies. Savannah had mentioned her once, months ago, in passing. "That Holly girl is certainly ambitious," she'd sniffed dismissively. "A bit of a climber, if you ask me." The hypocrisy was staggering. The betrayal, a physical blow. My husband was having an affair, and his sister, my supposed confidant, was not only aware of it, but was actively cheering them on. As I sat there, numb, staring at the screen, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a group text from Savannah to the whole family. "Get ready, everyone," it read, accompanied by a string of festive emojis. "I'm planning a huge family unity barbecue in a few weeks. Time to celebrate family and bring everyone closer. It's going to be epic. Can't wait to see you all there." Family unity. The ultimate sickening mockery. My vision blurred with rage. This barbecue wouldn't be a celebration of unity. It would be their downfall. Savannah's cheerful barbecue announcement, pinging on my phone while the evidence of her duplicity glowed on the screen before me, was like a lit match to a fuse. The shock and grief that had momentarily paralyzed me coalesced into a cold, hard knot of fury. Family unity? Bring everyone closer? Oh, I'd bring them closer to the truth, all right. My first move was to meticulously document everything from Caden's secret Instagram. I took screenshots of every photo of him and Holly, every loving caption, every single one of Savannah's sickeningly supportive comments. I saved them all to a secure folder on a new USB drive, triple-checking that everything was clear and undeniable. The sheer volume of their shared moments, so casually displayed, was a constant gut punch. How could they be so brazen? So cruel. Eliana, bless her practical heart, had once mentioned data recovery software when her own laptop had crashed. "Sometimes deleted stuff isn't really gone," she'd said. Caden had an old laptop gathering dust in the spare room closet. He'd complained it was too slow and replaced it months ago, but he'd never bothered to wipe it. With a surge of adrenaline, I retrieved it. It took a while to boot up, but it eventually sputtered to life. I downloaded the recovery software Eliana had recommended, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The scan took hours, an agonizing wait. I paced the study, fueled by coffee and a burning sense of purpose. Finally, the program dinged. Recovered files, thousands of them. Most were junk, fragmented documents, old system files. But then I found them, deleted message folders. My breath caught. The texts between Caden and Holly were exactly what you'd expect. Explicit. filled with pet names I'd never heard him use, plans for secret meetings. Cora's going to her mother's this weekend. My place? One read. Can't wait to see you, Holly had replied, with a string of heart emojis. Each message was a fresh stab of pain, but I pushed through, saving everything. Then I found the messages between Caden and Savannah. This was the real goldmine of deceit. My hands clenched as I read. Cora's getting suspicious again, Caden had texted Savannah weeks ago. Savannah's reply, Relax. She's always suspicious. Just tell her it's that big Henderson deal acting up. She'll buy it. She always does. You know how to handle her. Another exchange. Caden, she asked about the late nights. I said it was the Miller account. Savannah, good. Stick to the story. And maybe buy her some cheap flowers. That usually distracts her for a bit. LOL. Lol. She actually typed LOL while coaching her brother on how to lie to me, his wife. There were messages where Savannah actively helped facilitate their meetups. Mom and Dad want us over for dinner on Friday, Savannah had written. Tell Cora you have to work late, then you and Holly can have the evening free. I'll cover for you. Say you got called into a last-minute crisis. And then, the messages where Savannah openly mocked me to Caden. Cora was moping around again today, asking if you still loved her. So dramatic. Honestly, I don't know how you put up with it. Caden's reply, It's getting harder, but almost there. Just need to sort a few more things out. Sort a few more things out? What did that mean? My eyes scanned further, and then I saw it. A message from Caden to Savannah, sent just a couple of weeks before I found the empty jewelry box. This whole thing with Cora is draining, but once the new accounts are properly structured and everything's settled, I'm done. I can't keep living this lie. And don't worry, sis, there'll be a significant thank you in it for you for all your unwavering support. You deserve it. A significant thank you. Financial. My mind reeled. Savannah wasn't just a malicious enabler reveling in my distress. She was potentially set to profit from my misery, from the eventual destruction of my marriage. This wasn't just about her sick pleasure in seeing me suffer. It was about greed. They were planning to leave me, but only after Caden had secured his assets, likely hiding them from me, with Savannah as his accomplice and beneficiary. The pieces clicked into place. The vague business expenses, the gifts, the sudden need to restructure accounts. It all painted a picture of a calculated, long-term deception designed to strip me of not just my husband, but my financial security too. The cold anger I'd felt before now had a razor-sharp edge. They weren't just going to be embarrassed at this family unity barbecue. They were going to lose everything. The revelation of Savannah's potential financial motive lit a fire under me. This wasn't just about a sordid affair anymore. It was about a conspiracy to defraud me. The significant thank you Caden promised her wasn't just a pat on the back. It was blood money, my money, or at least my share of it. The next morning, I called Eliana. I need a lawyer, I said, my voice devoid of any tremor. A shark. And a forensic accountant. Caden and Savannah are trying to screw me over financially. Eliana, ever resourceful, had names for me by lunchtime. Willie Jordan for the divorce, she said. He's a bulldog, doesn't take any crap. And Lindsay Powell for the finances. She can find a needle in a haystack, even if the haystack is offshore. My first meeting was with Willie. He was a no-nonsense man in his mid-40s with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. I laid out the story, showing him the printouts of the Instagram posts, the damning text messages between Caden and Savannah, and my suspicions about the finances. He listened intently, occasionally nodding. Classic, he said when I finished. The sister as the accomplice is a nice touch of scumbaggery. So, what do you want, Cora? I want to expose them, I said. Publicly. At this ridiculous barbecue Savannah is planning. But more than that, I want to make sure Caden doesn't get away with hiding a single cent that's rightfully mine. He's built this empire during our marriage. He always boasted about how complex it was, how I'd never understand it. A bitter smile touched my lips. He underestimated me. Good, Willie said, a glint in his eye. We can work with that. The public exposure is your domain, but the financial side, that's where Lindsay comes in. Lindsay Powell was meticulous, a quiet woman with an astonishing ability to decipher complex financial jargon and untangle deliberately knotted threads. I handed over every piece of financial information I could find. Old tax returns, bank statements Caden had carelessly left lying around, the credit card statements with those suspicious business expenses. He thinks I'm ignorant about this stuff, I told her. He always made it sound like rocket science. Lindsay gave a small, knowing smile. They often do. It's a form of control. Let's see what Mr. Bradley has been up to, shall we? Over the next couple of weeks, while Savannah was busy sending out cheerful email updates about her family unity barbecue, complete with exclamation points and smiley faces, Lindsay and I were deep in a different kind of planning. Lindsay started digging, and it didn't take long for the irregularities to surface. Interesting, Lindsay murmured one afternoon, pointing to a series of transactions on her laptop screen. Significant sums have been funneled from Caden's main business account to a shell corporation, and from there, smaller, regular payments to another account under the guise of consulting fees. Guess whose name is on that second account? Savannah, I said, my voice flat. Bingo, Lindsay confirmed. It's not just a significant thank you in the future. She's been on the payroll for a while, it seems. The scale of his deception was breathtaking. Hidden accounts, assets systematically moved, all designed to minimize what I would get in a divorce he was clearly planning. He'd been building this financial fortress while simultaneously gaslighting me, making me doubt my sanity, all with his sister's gleeful assistance. The anger was a constant cold burn now, but I learned to compartmentalize. Around Caden and Savannah, I practiced a careful neutrality. I was quiet, perhaps a little withdrawn, which they probably attributed to my moodiness or paranoia. You feeling okay, Cora? Caden asked one evening, a flicker of something, concern, or was it wariness, in his eyes. Just tired, I replied, offering a weak smile. Looking forward to the barbecue. Some family time will be nice. He seemed to relax. Yeah, it'll be good. Savannah, too, seemed oblivious. She'd call with updates about the catering, the decorations, the guest list. It's going to be perfect, Cora, a real show of family strength, she gushed. I'm sure it will be, I said, my voice carefully bland. The grim satisfaction of knowing what was coming was a powerful motivator. I was no longer the doubting, paranoid wife. I was an architect of a different kind, meticulously laying the groundwork for their spectacular implosion. Then, Lindsay called with her biggest discovery yet. Cora, you need to see this, she said, her voice unusually urgent. I went to her office immediately. She pulled up a document on her screen. Caden set up an offshore account 3 months ago, Isle of Man, substantial initial deposit. And look who's listed as the secondary beneficiary with rights of survivorship. My eyes found the name, Savannah. The amount was staggering, enough to ensure a very comfortable life for both of them, far away from any claims I might make. This was the settling Caden had referred to in his text to Savannah. This was their endgame. He really thought he could get away with it, I whispered, a chilling calm settling over me. Lindsay nodded. He almost did. Almost. The word hung in the air. He hadn't counted on me. He hadn't counted on the wife he dismissed as too sensitive, too ignorant, too trusting. He hadn't counted on her sharpening an axe. The week of the family unity barbecue arrived with a suffocating sense of inevitability. Savannah was in her absolute element, a whirlwind of self-importance, barking orders about table arrangements and playlist choices. Her smugness was a palpable force, radiating off her in waves. Every time she looked at me, it was with that familiar blend of pity and superiority. "Cora, sweetie, are you going to help with the potato salad? Or just stand there looking glum?" she called out from the kitchen 2 days before the event, where she was supervising her mother, Michaela, and a reluctant aunt. "Just contemplating the joyous family spirit," I replied, my voice smooth as glass. I even managed a small, serene smile. It seemed to unnerve her, just for a second. Her perfectly plucked eyebrows drew together. "Well, try to put on a happy face for the actual party, okay? We want everyone to feel welcome and positive, especially Caden. He's been so stressed." "Of course, Savannah," I said. "Wouldn't dream of spoiling your perfect day." My calmness, this new, almost detached serenity I wore like a shield, was my best defense. Inside, I was a coiled spring of controlled fury and anticipation, but on the surface, I was the picture of compliance. Caden, too, seemed to take my quietness as resignation, perhaps even a sign that I was finally settling down, as he'd hoped. He was more relaxed around me than he'd been in months, occasionally even attempting small talk. "Looking forward to the barbecue?" he asked one evening, as if it were just any other family gathering. "Immensely," I said, meeting his gaze. "I think it's going to be memorable." My plan was finalized. The USB drive was ready. It contained a curated selection of horrors, the most damning texts between Caden and Holly, the irrefutable messages between Caden and Savannah plotting their deceit and mocking me, a selection of the most romantic photos of Caden and Holly from his secret Instagram, and even a simplified graphic Lindsay had helped me create, showing the flow of money from Caden's business to Savannah's consulting account and the existence of the offshore fund. It was a digital dagger, poised and ready. Savannah, in her infinite wisdom, had decided a nostalgic family slideshow would be a heartwarming centerpiece for the barbecue. She'd spent weeks collecting old photos, scanning them, and putting them into a presentation. She'd even asked me if I had any early pictures of Caden and me. "Oh, I'm sure you have much better ones, Savannah," I'd said with a smile. "You're so good at these things," she'd preened. "Well, it is going to be rather special." The plan was simple, a quick swap. Her USB for mine. Eliana was my ace in the hole. She'd, coincidentally, be near the laptop and projector when it was time for the slideshow, ready to create a minor technical diversion if I needed an excuse to fiddle with the setup. "Are you sure about this, Cora?" Eliana had asked, her voice laced with concern when I walked her through the final details. "This is major." "They made it major, Eliana," I replied, my resolve firm. "They gaslit me, betrayed me, and planned to steal from me. They built this stage. I'm just rewriting the script." The day before the barbecue, Savannah cornered me in the hallway. She was holding a platter of perfectly arranged crudités, her expression one of saccharine solicitude. "Cora," she began, her voice syrupy sweet. "I just wanted to say, I know things have been a bit strained with you and Caden lately." She paused, giving me a look that was supposed to be understanding, but was just condescending. "And I just hope you know that Caden really deserves someone who understands the pressures he's under. Someone more supportive." Her eyes flicked over me, dismissively. "I'm so glad he has family, who truly gets him." That was it. That final, patronizing barb. Any infinitesimal flicker of doubt I might have harbored about the severity of my plan, any lingering wisp of misplaced sentimentality, was instantly extinguished. She wasn't just enabling him. She was actively trying to push me out, to paint me as the inadequate wife who didn't get her precious brother. I met her gaze, my own expression unreadable. Thank you for your concern, Savannah, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I appreciate you sharing your perspective. Her smile widened, clearly misinterpreting my composure as acquiescence. Good. I'm glad we understand each other. Oh, we understood each other perfectly. She just didn't realize what it was I understood. She had no idea that her family unity barbecue was about to become the inferno that would consume her carefully constructed world. And I was the one holding the match. The barbecue was in full glorious swing. The backyard of Caden and Savannah's parents, Thomas and Michaela, buzzed with chatter and the smell of grilled meat. Extended family milled about, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew, all lured by Savannah's promise of epic family unity. Thomas, a man who valued family image above all else, beamed proprietorially. Michaela fluttered nervously, trying to ensure everyone had a drink. Savannah, naturally, was the queen bee. She flitted from group to group, her laughter loud and confident, her hand often resting possessively on Caden's arm. He played the part of the charming host, though I caught him glancing at me a few times, a slight unease in his eyes whenever he found me watching him with my serene, unreadable smile. Finally, after the burgers and ribs had been devoured, Savannah clinked a spoon against her wineglass. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" she trilled, her voice radiating smug satisfaction. The crowd quieted. As you all know, family is the most important thing. It's about loyalty, support, and sticking together through thick and thin. She paused, glancing meaningfully at Caden, then shot a quick, pitying look in my direction. So, to celebrate our wonderful united family, I've put together a little trip down memory lane. This was it. My heart hammered, a frantic bird against my ribs, but my hands were steady. "Cora, sweetie, could you give me a hand with the laptop?" Savannah called, gesturing towards the table where the projector was set up. "My nails are still wet." Perfect. I walked over, Eliana subtly positioning herself nearby, feigning interest in a bowl of dip. "Of course, Savannah," I said, my voice calm. As Savannah fussed with the projector screen, I leaned over the laptop. Her USB drive, a garish pink thing, was already plugged in. With a swift, practiced movement, hidden by the angle of the laptop screen, I swapped it with my own plain silver one. It took less than 2 seconds. "There we go!" Savannah announced triumphantly, dimming the patio lights. "Get ready for some nostalgia!" The screen flickered to life. The first image was not, as expected, a grainy photo of a baby Savannah or a young Caden. Instead, bold white text appeared on a black background. "Cora's just so needy. You're a breath of fresh air." Caden to Holly. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Forks clattered onto plates. Before anyone could process it, the screen changed. "Just tell her it's a work crisis. She'll buy it. She always does. You know how to handle her." Savannah to Caden. I saw Savannah's face. Her smile froze, then melted into an expression of pure, unadulterated horror. Caden went pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then came the photos. Caden and Holly, laughing intimately at a candlelit dinner. Caden and Holly, kissing passionately on a sun-drenched beach. Caden and Holly, her hand resting possessively on his chest, both of them beaming. The sentimental music Savannah had chosen for her slideshow abruptly cut out, replaced by a stunned, suffocating silence. Then, screenshots of Savannah's Instagram comments, projected large for everyone to see. "You two look so happy," under a picture of Caden and Holly. "Living your best life, bro. So deserved." Michaela let out a choked sob, her hand flying to her mouth. Thomas's face was turning a dangerous shade of purple. Before the murmurs could erupt into full-blown chaos, I stepped forward, my voice clear and steady. amplified slightly by the microphone Savannah had intended for her gushing speech. "For months," I began, my gaze sweeping over the stunned faces, landing finally on Caden and Savannah. "You've called me paranoid. You, Savannah, orchestrated this charade of family unity while actively, enthusiastically helping my husband betray me. You both made me question my sanity." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Well, the truth, as they say, is out." Just as the shouting was about to begin, a figure stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. It was Holly. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice was surprisingly strong. "He told me you two were already separated," she cried, looking directly at Caden. "He said you were just waiting for the divorce to be finalized. And Savannah," she turned her tear-filled eyes to a now ashen-faced Savannah. "Savannah told me Cora was vindictive and trying to ruin him financially. She said you were trying to protect him." Another layer of their deceit, peeled back for all to see. The crowd gasped again. Savannah looked like she might faint. I let Holly's words hang in the air for a moment, then turned my attention back to my husband and his sister. "This isn't just about your disgusting affair," I said, my voice ringing with a cold finality. "It's about every lie, every manipulation, every time you made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting the truth." I took a deep breath. "My lawyer, Willie Jordan, filed for divorce this morning, and Ms. Powell, my forensic accountant, has already flagged all the assets you tried to hide, Caden." I saw his eyes widen in panic. "Including that very special offshore account with Savannah listed as a beneficiary." I looked from Caden's horrified face to Savannah's crumbling facade. "Enjoy the ashes of your empire," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying across the suddenly silent yard. Then, I turned and walked away, the first shouts of outrage and disbelief erupting behind me like fireworks. The moment I turned my back, the backyard erupted. I didn't need to see it to know. Thomas's bellow of rage was unmistakable. A wounded bull. Michaela's heartbroken wails followed, punctuated by a cacophony of shocked exclamations and angry accusations from the other family members. I kept walking, Eliana falling into step beside me as we reached the street, her hand a comforting presence on my arm. "You okay?" she asked, her voice soft. "Better than okay," I said, and was surprised to find it was true. A strange lightness filled me. The weight of months of suspicion and self-doubt finally lifted. Let them sort through their own mess. The fallout, as Eliana relayed to me in snippets over the following days, was biblical. Thomas apparently read Caden and Savannah the riot act in front of everyone, his face crimson, veins bulging. Michaela was inconsolable, torn between her children's disgrace and her own humiliation. Many relatives, disgusted by the public display of deceit, offered me quiet words of support as they hastily departed the Unity barbecue, leaving Caden and Savannah to face the full force of their parents' fury alone. They became instant pariahs in their own family circle. The legal battle, which I had braced myself for, turned out to be surprisingly swift, though undeniably grueling. Willie Jordan, my bulldog lawyer, lived up to his reputation. Armed with Lindsay Powell's meticulous forensic accounting and the mountain of evidence I'd gathered, including Holly's willing testimony, as she was furious at being so thoroughly duped, Caden's attempts to hide assets crumbled. He tried to claim the offshore account was a misunderstanding, a long-term family investment fund, Willie told me after one particularly contentious mediation session, a smirk playing on his lips. Lindsay ripped that argument to shreds in about 5 minutes, showed the direct transfers, Savannah's beneficiary status, the whole 9 yards. Their lawyer looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. Caden fought, of course. He tried to paint me as vindictive, unstable, the very narrative he and Savannah had so carefully crafted. But the evidence was irrefutable. The texts, The photos, the financial trails, they told a clear story of calculated betrayal and attempted fraud. He lost. Big time. He didn't lose everything, but a significant portion of his empire, built during our marriage, was rightfully awarded to me. His reputation, both personally and professionally, was in tatters. Deals fell through. Business partners distanced themselves. Savannah faced her own reckoning. The social ostracization was immediate and brutal. Her carefully curated image of the perfect daughter, sister, and family linchpin was shattered. Whispers followed her everywhere. There were even rumblings of potential legal trouble for her role in attempting to conceal marital assets, though Willie advised that proving criminal intent would be difficult. Still, the threat hung over her. Her consulting fees dried up instantly. I sold the marital home, the one filled with too many ghosts of lies and whispers. The proceeds, combined with my settlement, gave me a solid foundation. I didn't want anything that felt tainted by him, by them. I found a small apartment in a different part of the city, bright and airy, a blank canvas. Eliana helped me paint the walls a cheerful yellow. To new beginnings, she said, raising a metaphorical paintbrush. To truth, I replied, clinking mine against hers. There was a hollowness, yes, where my marriage used to be, a space carved out by betrayal. But it wasn't an aching void. It was quiet. And into that quiet, relief flooded in, followed by a rediscovery of my own strength, my own voice. I hadn't realized how much of myself I'd suppressed, trying to be the understanding, supportive wife they wanted me to be. The wife who wouldn't question, wouldn't see. I didn't seek reconciliation. I didn't offer forgiveness. Some betrayals cut too deep, severing ties irrevocably. Their actions weren't a mistake. They were a campaign. One evening, not long after the divorce was finalized, Eliana called. "Guess who I saw today?" she said, a note of amusement in her voice. "Who?" "Caden, at that little coffee shop near my office. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Ordered a regular coffee, black, complained about the price." I felt a flicker of something, not pity, but a distant clinical observation of cause and effect. "And Savannah?" I asked. "Heard through the grapevine her parents are barely speaking to her. She's apparently trying to rebrand herself as a victim of Caden's manipulations. Not many people are buying it." Eliana paused. "So, karma's a bitch, huh?" A small quiet smile touched my lips. "Sometimes she just delivers the mail." I looked around my new living room, at the boxes still waiting to be unpacked, at the sunlight streaming through the clean windows. The pain of what they did would likely always be a part of my story, a scar that wouldn't completely fade. But it no longer defined me. Destroying their world, their lies, their carefully constructed facade. It hadn't been about the sheer pleasure of revenge, not entirely. It had been about reclaiming my truth, my sanity, my life. It was about choosing myself when they had so clearly, so cruelly, chosen to discard me. And in that choice, I found a strength I never knew I possessed. The real unity, I realized, began with being true to oneself.
The call came just as I was finalizing the biggest contract of my career. My phone buzzed with my mother's face lighting up the screen, and my stomach instantly knotted. Mom never called during business hours unless something was terribly wrong. "Livia, you need to come home right now. It's your sister. There's been an accident." My name is Livia, and at 30 years old, I'd built my marketing agency from nothing into a 7-figure business. But in that moment, none of it mattered. I grabbed my keys and rushed out of my office, leaving the contract unsigned on my desk. "What happened? Is Lexi okay?" I asked, my voice shaking as I sprinted to my car. "Just come quickly," Mom said before hanging up. The 40-minute drive home felt like an eternity. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as memories of Lexi flooded my mind. Despite our differences, she was still my baby sister. Just last week, she'd been gushing about her upcoming wedding to Caesar, showing off her massive engagement ring that probably cost more than his annual salary. I screeched into my parents' driveway and burst through the front door. "Mom? Dad? Where's Lexi?" The scene that greeted me stopped me cold. Lexi sat on the couch, perfectly fine, surrounded by wedding magazines. Mom hovered nearby with a guilty expression, while Dad avoided eye contact entirely. "Oh, good, you're here," Lexi chirped, flipping through a bridal catalog. "I need your opinion on these centerpieces." My blood ran cold. "What accident?" "Well," Mom started, wringing her hands, "Lexi really needed you here for wedding planning, and we knew you wouldn't come if—" "Are you kidding me?" I cut her off. "I left an important meeting for this?" Lexi rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, it's just work. This is my wedding we're talking about." "Just work?" I laughed incredulously. "That just work paid for your college tuition when Mom and Dad couldn't afford it." "Girls, please." Dad finally spoke up from his armchair. "Lexi's wedding is important to all of us. Can't you take one afternoon off, Livia?" I pulled out my phone to check my emails, my heart sinking when I saw messages from my client about the missed meeting. "You don't get it. I had $1 million contract signing today." "See?" Lexi gestured dramatically. "You're always so obsessed with money. This is about family." "Family doesn't lie to each other," I snapped. My phone buzzed again. A message from my office manager. "Client left, said they'll be reconsidering the contract." "I have to go damage control this," I said, turning to leave. "Livia," Mom called after me, "don't you want to be part of your sister's special day?" I paused at the door. "Next time you want me to be part of something, try asking honestly instead of manipulating me with fake emergencies." "You're just jealous because I'm getting married first," Lexi shouted as I walked out. The drive back to my office was a blur of anger and frustration. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Mom and Lexi, but I ignored them all. Something felt off about today, beyond the obvious manipulation. Maybe it was the way Dad couldn't meet my eyes, or how Mom seemed more nervous than usual. When I finally reached my office, my assistant Valeria was waiting with a concerned look. "What happened with the contract?" I asked. "They're gone," she said quietly. "But Livia, there's something else. While you were gone, someone accessed our financial systems. The passwords were changed." I froze. "What? How is that possible? Only 3 people have that access. You, me, and—" The realization hit me like a truck. The fake emergency, the wedding planning distraction. It all made horrible sense. "Call Eugene," I told Valeria, my voice steel. "Tell him I need him here first thing tomorrow morning." As I sat at my desk, staring at the unsigned contract that could have secured my company's future, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Lexi. "Thanks for coming home, sis. Can't wait to show you my wedding dress tomorrow." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Something told me I'd need proof of every transaction, every document, every detail of what I'd built. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't trust my own sister. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of her betrayal. Eugene arrived at my office the next morning, looking grave. He'd been our family's attorney since I was a kid, but today he wasn't here as a family friend. "Show me everything," he said, setting his briefcase down. I pulled up my company's financial records on my computer screen. "Yesterday, someone changed all our system passwords. This morning, I discovered large transfers had been made last week. Money I never authorized." Eugene leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "How much are we talking about?" $3 million, almost everything we had. His sharp intake of breath told me everything. "And you suspect Lexi?" "The timing's too perfect," I said, pulling out my phone to show him the texts. "She created a fake emergency to get me away from the office right when—" My phone started ringing. It was Bailey, my younger brother. "Liv," he said, his voice shaking. "Have you seen the news?" I put him on speaker and pulled up our local business news website. The headline made my blood run cold. "Rising marketing agency acquired by wedding planning empire." "What the hell?" I whispered. "There's more," Bailey continued. Lexi's been telling everyone at her wedding planning meetings that she's now CEO of a major marketing company. She's using it to attract investors for some kind of wedding-related business venture. Eugene was already typing furiously on his laptop. Livia, when was the last time you checked your business registration documents? 2 weeks ago, everything was normal. I pulled up the government business portal, logged in, and felt the room spin. This can't be right. There it was in black and white. Ownership had been transferred to Lexi Horton Enterprises, LLC. But how? I demanded. I never signed anything. Eugene's face darkened. Someone did. We need to get the original documents. My office door burst open and Valeria rushed in. Livia, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to Lexi's social media. There was my sister, standing in my office, behind my desk, captioning, "Big news, so excited to announce my newest venture. Thanks to my amazing sister for this incredible wedding gift." Wedding gift? I spat. My phone buzzed again. Mom. Livia, why aren't you answering Lexi's calls? She's trying to discuss the company transition with you. What company transition? I demanded. Mom, she stole my business. Don't be dramatic, Mom sighed. She said you agreed to help fund her wedding. It's what sisters do. What sisters do? I built this company from nothing. While she was partying through college, I was working 18-hour days. Well, maybe if you hadn't been so obsessed with work, you'd have someone special in your life too, Mom said coldly. Lexi's wedding is important to this family. I hung up, my hands shaking with rage. Eugene cleared his throat. Livia, we need to move fast. I'm filing an emergency injunction, but we need proof of fraud. I have security cameras, Valeria offered, including the day Lexi visited last month. We pulled up the footage. There I was, in a meeting with clients. And there was Lexi, slipping into my office while I was distracted. The camera caught her rifling through my desk drawers, but the angle didn't show what she took. Bank statements, I realized. She needed my signature to forge. Bailey's voice came through the phone, still on speaker. Liv, there's something else. Lexi's been collecting investments from wedding guests. She's promising them huge returns after the wedding, saying she'll use your company's profits. Eugene's head snapped up. That's securities fraud. How many investors? At least 50, Bailey said. Most of them put in their life savings. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about me anymore. Lexi had dragged innocent people into her scheme. Eugene, I said quietly, what are my options? He closed his laptop. Legally? We fight. But it'll be messy, public, and could take months, during which time she'll have control of your company. And the investors? If they lose their money, they could sue both you and Lexi, since she's using your company's name. I stood up, walking to the window of what might no longer be my office. Then we need something faster than legal action, something that forces her to undo this before the wedding. What are you thinking? Valeria asked. I turned back to face them, my mind made up. If Lexi wants to make this about her wedding, then that's exactly where we'll hit her. Bailey, I need everything you can get about these investors. Eugene, keep working on the legal angle. Valeria, yes? Clear my schedule. We're going wedding planning. I stormed into my parents' house that evening, clutching a stack of documents Eugene had prepared. The whole family was gathered for another wedding planning session, including Lexi's fiancé, Caesar. Oh, there you are, Lexi beamed, acting as if nothing was wrong. We were just discussing the investor dinner next week. You'll be there to help present, right? Investor dinner? I looked directly at Caesar. Did she tell you where the investment money is really going? Caesar frowned. It's for our wedding venue chain. Lexi said you're partnering with us. Is that what she told you? I slammed the documents on the coffee table. These are bank statements showing $3 million transferred out of my company last week. Money that's already gone to pay for your wedding. Livia! Mom stood up, hands on her hips. Stop trying to ruin your sister's happiness. Happiness? I laughed bitterly. Let's talk about the 50 people who invested their life savings in this scheme. Did you tell them, Lexi, that you're using their money for flower arrangements and a designer dress? Lexi's face paled slightly, but she recovered quickly. Don't be ridiculous. The company transfer was a gift. You signed the papers yourself. I never signed anything, I said, pulling out another document. But someone forged my signature. Want to explain that? Dad finally looked up from his newspaper. Forged? Lexi, what is she talking about? She's lying! Lexi jumped up, her voice shrill. Mom, tell her to stop! Actually, Bailey spoke up from the corner where he'd been quietly observing. I have proof. He pulled out his phone and played a recording. Lexi's voice, clear as day, promising an elderly couple a 300% return on their investment through her marketing company. Caesar stood up slowly. Babe, what's going on? You told me your sister was handling the business side. She is, Lexi insisted, but her voice wavered. Livia's just jealous because I'm finally more successful than her. Successful? I stepped closer. You stole my company. You're scamming innocent people. That's not success. That's fraud. It's not fraud, Lexi screamed. I deserve this. Do you know how hard it is being your sister? Perfect Livia, who built her own business, who always does everything right. This is my chance to have something of my own. By stealing what I built? Girls, please, Dad tried to intervene. We can work this out as a family. Can we? I turned to him. Because last I checked, family doesn't commit identity theft. Family doesn't forge signatures. And family definitely doesn't steal $3 million. Mom started crying. Livia, why can't you just help your sister? It's her wedding. A wedding she's funding with stolen money and fake investments. These people could lose everything. Caesar grabbed his jacket. I need some air. This is too much. Caesar, wait! Lexi called after him as he headed for the door. It's not what you think. Then what is it? He asked, pausing. Because it sounds like you've been lying to everyone, including me. The room fell silent as he left. Lexi turned on me, tears streaming down her face. You've ruined everything. This was supposed to be perfect. Perfect? I pulled out my phone. Should I call the investors? Let them know their money is gone? Or maybe the police? You wouldn't dare, Mom gasped. Try me. I met Lexi's eyes. You have 24 hours to transfer everything back and come clean to the investors, or I go public with everything. You can't prove anything, Lexi said, but her voice trembled. Bailey stood up. Actually, we can. I've been recording every investment meeting for the past week. Every promise, every lie. You little snake. Lexi lunged at him, but Dad held her back. Enough, he shouted. For the first time in my life, I saw real anger in his eyes. Lexi, is this true? Did you steal from your sister? Lexi's facade finally cracked. I just needed the money. The wedding was getting so expensive, and everyone expected it to be perfect. 24 hours, I repeated, turning to leave. Oh, and Lexi, I'd start calling wedding vendors to cancel. Because one way or another, this fairy tale is over. As I walked out, I heard Mom start sobbing harder and Dad demanding answers from Lexi. Bailey followed me to my car. That was intense, he said quietly. It's not over, I replied, starting the engine. She's not going to give up that easily. What are you going to do? I checked my phone, seeing missed calls from 3 different investors. I'm going to make sure she faces consequences for once in her life, even if it means destroying this family in the process. Valeria paced my living room, phone in hand, reading messages from our business contacts. 3 more investors called. They're getting nervous because Lexi isn't returning their calls. Of course she isn't, I said, checking my watch. 18 hours left until my deadline. My phone buzzed. Caesar calling. I put him on speaker. Livia, he sounded exhausted. I've been going through Lexi's papers. This is worse than we thought. She promised some investors returns of up to 500%. That's impossible, Valeria gasped. Even in our best year, we never cleared more than 40% profit. She's been showing them fake projections, Caesar continued. Using your company's letterhead. There's more. She's already spent most of the investment money on wedding deposits. Non-refundable ones. I rubbed my temples. How much are we talking about? 2.8 million. The venue alone was nearly $1 million. Eugene, who'd been quietly reviewing documents at my dining table, looked up. That's securities fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft. She's looking at serious prison time. My phone buzzed again, Mom calling. I ignored it. What about the other investors? I asked Caesar. The ones Bailey recorded? Another 4 million, promised for after the wedding. Lexi told them the money would fund a chain of luxury wedding venues. She showed them fake property listings and everything. A knock at my door made us all jump. Bailey burst in, looking panicked. Lexi's doing damage control, he said, pulling up social media on his tablet. Look. There was my sister, tears streaming down her face, recording a live video. I just wanted to address the horrible rumors my sister is spreading. Yes, she gifted me her company as a wedding present, but now she's trying to take it back. She's always been jealous of my happiness. Turn it off, I snapped. Eugene, options? We go nuclear, he said, pulling out a fresh stack of papers. I've prepared criminal complaints, civil suits, and... Another knock interrupted him. This time, when I opened the door, I found Dad standing there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I let him in. He took in the scene. Eugene with his legal papers, Valeria with her phone, Bailey with his tablet, and Caesar on speaker. I had no idea, he said, sinking into a chair. All these years, we enabled her, made excuses, but this... He pulled out an envelope. I found these in her old room, copies of your signature she'd been practicing forging. Eugene took the envelope. This is exactly what we needed, proof of premeditation. Dad, I said softly, you know what has to happen now. He nodded slowly. Your mother won't accept it. She's still defending Lexi, saying we should just give her the money to make this go away. It's not just about the money anymore. Caesar spoke up from the phone. She lied to everyone, including me. Mr. Gonzalez, Eugene said, we're filing charges tomorrow morning unless Lexi returns everything and comes clean to the investors. As her father, you might want to encourage her to cooperate. Dad stood up, straightening his shoulders. I'll talk to her, but Livia... He turned to me. Whatever happens, you're right to do this. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. After he left, Valeria checked her phone again. Lexi's video is going viral. People are taking sides. Let them, I said, turning to Eugene. What's our next move? We need to protect the remaining investors, he replied. Stop them from putting in more money. Bailey, can you get me those recordings? Bailey nodded, but then froze, staring at his phone. Guys, you need to see this. He held up his screen. A new email from Lexi to all the investors. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Exciting new developments in our venture. Bring your checkbooks. Final chance to invest before we close funding. She's going to take more money, Valeria whispered. No, I grabbed my keys. She's not. Bailey, forward that email to Eugene. Valeria, call every investor on our list. Warn them. Caesar, can you meet us at the venue she booked for this meeting? I'll be there, he confirmed. But Livia, what are you going to do? I looked at the stack of legal documents Eugene had prepared, then at the forged signatures Dad had brought. Years of enabling Lexi had led to this moment. Time to end it. I'm going to give my sister exactly what she wants, I said. A public scene she'll never forget. As we headed out, my phone buzzed one final time. A text from Lexi. You can't stop this. I always get what I want. See you at the meeting, sis. I showed the message to Eugene. He smiled grimly. Perfect. Now we have proof she's continuing the fraud despite warnings. Shall we proceed with the restraining order? No, I replied. Let her have her meeting. It's time everyone saw the real Lexi. The hotel ballroom was packed with potential investors when I arrived. Lexi stood at the podium, radiant in a designer dress, while Mom sat in the front row beaming with pride. Neither of them had noticed me slip in with Eugene and Valeria. As you know, Lexi was saying, our luxury wedding venue chain is an incredible investment opportunity. My sister's marketing company, which she generously gifted to me, will ensure maximum exposure. That's interesting, I called out, stepping forward. Tell them about the gift, Lexi. Show them the paperwork. The room fell silent. Lexi's smile flickered but didn't fade. Livia, I'm so glad you came, she said sweetly. Everyone, this is my sister, who's been so supportive of my dreams. Actually, I pulled out my phone. Let's talk about those dreams. And the $3 million you stole. Security! Mom stood up, pointing at me. Remove her! I wouldn't. Eugene stepped forward, holding up his badge. Federal investigation in progress. Everyone stay seated. The crowd started murmuring. An elderly man in the third row stood up. What investigation? Ms. Lexi promised us guaranteed returns. There are no guaranteed returns, I said loudly, because there is no wedding venue chain. The money you've already invested, it's gone, spent on her personal wedding. That's a lie, Lexi screamed, mask finally cracking. Mom, make her stop. I have proof, I continued, nodding to Valeria, who started playing the security footage on the projector. There was Lexi sneaking into my office, practicing my signature, making transfers. The crowd erupted. We want our money back, someone shouted. Please, everyone calm down, Lexi pleaded. This is just a misunderstanding. My sister is jealous because... Because what? Caesar stepped in from the back. Because you committed fraud? Because you lied to everyone, including me? Caesar, Lexi's eyes widened. Baby, I can explain. Explain the fake properties? He held up his phone. The ones you showed investors? I called every single realtor. None of them are for sale. More shouts from the crowd. Mom rushed to the podium, trying to shield Lexi. My daughter would never lie, she insisted. Livia is trying to ruin her wedding. Mrs. Gonzalez, Eugene stepped forward. Your daughter forged signatures, committed wire fraud, and stole millions. The FBI is very interested in this case. The FBI? Lexi's face went white. Unless, I said clearly, you return every dollar by noon tomorrow and confess everything to these people right now. Lexi looked around frantically, seeing angry faces everywhere. I just wanted a perfect wedding. Everyone expected so much. My retirement savings! An elderly woman cried out. I trusted you. I can fix this, Lexi insisted. Just give me more time. If everyone here invests today. That's enough, a new voice cut through the chaos. Dad walked in, followed by 2 police officers. Lexi, it's over. Daddy? Lexi's voice went small. You called the police? You need help, he said firmly. This has to stop. The officers approached the podium. One of them spoke. Ms. Lexi Horton, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud and identity theft. No, Mom tried to block them. You can't do this. It's almost her wedding day. Mom, I said quietly, let her face the consequences, for once. As the officers led Lexi away, she turned to me, mascara streaming down her face. I hate you. You've ruined everything. No, Lexi, you did that yourself. The investors swarmed Eugene, demanding information about recovering their money. Caesar slipped out quietly, engagement ring left on a table. Mom collapsed in tears while Dad tried to comfort her. Bailey appeared at my side. That was intense. It's not over, I replied, watching Lexi being escorted out. The criminal charges are just beginning. What about the company? Eugene's filing for emergency restoration of ownership tomorrow, but the damage to our reputation... We'll rebuild, Valeria said firmly. Your clients trust you, not her. As the ballroom emptied, Mom approached me, eyes red. Are you happy now? You've destroyed your sister's life. No, Mom, I stopped her from destroying more lives. I turned away, then paused. You might want to start canceling wedding vendors. Something tells me there won't be a ceremony next month. Walking out, I heard Dad calling my name, but I didn't turn back. The family I'd known was gone, shattered by Lexi's actions and years of enabling. But as I left the hotel, I felt lighter somehow. The truth was finally out. My phone buzzed, a text from Eugene. Ready for tomorrow's court appearance? Ready, I replied. Time to make it official. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived the next morning. Lexi's scandal had made the local news, and everyone wanted details about the socialite bride turned fraudster. Ms. Horton, they called out. How does it feel to be betrayed by your own sister? I pushed through with Valeria and Eugene flanking me. Inside, Bailey was already waiting. Heads up, he whispered. Mom's here with Lexi. She managed to post bail last night. How? I asked. Sold her jewelry collection, Bailey replied. Every last piece, including Grandma's diamonds. Before I could respond, Lexi appeared with her court-appointed attorney. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked small in her plain black suit, dark circles under her eyes. "Livia," she said quietly. "Can we talk? Please?" I looked at Eugene, who nodded. 5 minutes. In there. He pointed to an empty conference room. Inside, Lexi's composure cracked. "I can fix this. I just need more time. If you drop the charges, I cut her off. "What about the investors? The people whose lives you nearly ruined? I'll pay them back. Eventually. She twisted her hands. "I couldn't stand being the failure anymore. You were always so successful, and I was just me." "So you stole my success instead of building your own? You don't understand. Everyone expected this amazing wedding. Caesar's family is wealthy. I had to prove I belonged." "And now Caesar's gone," I said flatly. "The money's gone. Your reputation's gone. Was it worth it?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm your sister. Doesn't that mean anything?" It meant everything. That's why this hurts so much. A knock at the door. Eugene. "They're ready for us." In the courtroom, Mom sat in the front row, clutching her purse. Dad wasn't there. According to Bailey, he hadn't spoken to anyone since yesterday. The judge reviewed the evidence, forged documents, bank transfers, investor testimonies. Lexi's attorney tried arguing for leniency, citing her clean record and family connections. Then the prosecutor stood up. "Your Honor, we've received new evidence. Ms. Lexi Horton attempted to solicit additional investments yesterday, even after being confronted with her fraud." The judge's expression darkened. "Is this true, Ms. Horton?" Lexi looked at her attorney, then at Mom, then finally at me. Something in her broke. "Yes," she whispered. "It's all true. I stole the money. I forged the signatures. I lied to everyone." Mom let out a sob. The judge shuffled his papers. "Given the admission of guilt and the severity of the charges, I'm setting this for criminal trial. In the meantime, regarding the emergency motion for business ownership restoration," he signed several documents. "The company is returned to Ms. Livia Horton, effective immediately. Additionally, a restraining order is granted, preventing Ms. Lexi Horton from any contact with the business or its clients." Lexi slumped in her chair. Her attorney leaned over, whispering urgently about plea deals and cooperation agreements. As we left the courtroom, Mom blocked my path. "How could you do this to your own sister? How could you enable her for so long?" I shot back. "This is where your favoritism led." "She's facing prison time," Mom hissed. "She's facing consequences," I corrected. "Maybe for the first time in her life." Bailey appeared, touching my arm. "Dad's here. He wants to see you both." We found him sitting in the courthouse garden, looking older than his years. "I've been thinking," he said as we approached, "about where we went wrong, how we created this mess." "Robert, don't," Mom started. "No, Stephanie, we did this. We taught Lexi that she could take whatever she wanted, that rules didn't apply to her, that her sister's success was somehow hers to claim." He stood up, facing me. "I'm sorry, Livia, for every time we dismissed your hard work, for every time we made excuses for her behavior, for failing both of you as a father." Mom started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Reality was finally sinking in. "The investors," Dad continued, "how much do they need?" $7 million total," I replied, "plus interest." He nodded. "I'm selling the house. It won't cover everything, but it's a start. Your mother and I will find an apartment." "Robert!" Mom gasped. "It's done, Stephanie. We helped create this mess. We'll help fix it." As they walked away, Valeria touched my shoulder. "You okay?" I watched my parents leave, thinking about family dinners that would never happen again, holidays that would be forever changed, trust that might never be rebuilt. "No," I answered honestly, "but I will be." My phone buzzed. Eugene had sent the court documents officially returning my company. It felt like the end of something, but also the beginning. "Let's go," I told Valeria. "We have a business to rebuild." 3 weeks later, I sat in my office reviewing the damage reports. Most clients had stayed loyal after learning the truth, but rebuilding trust took time. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. There's someone here to see you, Valeria said softly. One of the investors. The elderly woman who entered looked familiar. She'd been at Lexi's investor meeting. Her name was Margaret, and she'd lost her retirement savings. I wanted to thank you, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. The first repayment came through yesterday. I nodded. Dad sold the house. The money's being distributed proportionally to all investors. That's not why I'm here. Margaret leaned forward. Your sister's sentencing is tomorrow. Will you be there? My stomach tightened. I haven't decided. I'll be there, she said, not out of anger anymore, but because someone needs to witness consequences. My late husband always said that's how people learn. My phone buzzed, Bailey calling. Excuse me, I said to Margaret, answering the call. Liv, his voice was urgent. Mom's at my apartment. You need to come. 20 minutes later, I walked into Bailey's living room to find Mom surrounded by photo albums, mascara streaking her face. Look at these, she thrust a photo at me. Lexi's 5th birthday. You helped her blow out the candles. You were always protecting her, and now I'm protecting everyone else from her, I finished. Mom, this isn't helping. They're saying 5 to 7 years, she whispered. My baby girl? Bailey caught my eye, mouthing, Dad's coming. Sure enough, Dad arrived minutes later. He looked different, thinner, grayer, but somehow stronger. Stephanie, he said gently, the apartment's ready. We should go. I'm not leaving my photos. The photos can come, he assured her, but we need to face tomorrow with dignity, for both our daughters. Mom looked up at me. Will you be there? Please, Livia. She's asking for you. I thought of Margaret's words about witnessing consequences. Yes, I said finally. I'll be there. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Investors, former wedding guests, local media. Caesar sat in the back looking uncomfortable but determined. Lexi entered in handcuffs, wearing prison orange. She'd lost weight, her designer highlights growing out. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. The judge cleared his throat. Ms. Lexi Horton, you stand convicted of multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. Before sentencing, you may make a statement. Lexi stood shakily. I've had time to think in jail, about who I am and what I've done. To the investors, I'm sorry. To my fiancé, I'm sorry. To my parents, I'm sorry. She turned to face me. And to my sister, I'm most sorry to you. I didn't steal your business because I needed it. I stole it because I wanted to be you, strong, successful, respected. But I took the easy way, and I destroyed everything. The judge nodded. Given your cooperation in recovering funds and your guilty plea, I sentence you to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will continue to make restitution to your victims. Mom started crying. Dad held her hand. Bailey squeezed my shoulder. As they led Lexi away, she called out, Livia, the journals. In my room. Please read them. That evening, I sat in my childhood bedroom reading Lexi's journals. Pages and pages of comparison, jealousy, and twisted admiration. The last entry, dated just before the theft, read, Maybe if I take her life, I'll finally be worth something. A text from Caesar. Just checked on the last investor repayments. Your parents' house sale covered 60%. I'm selling the ring to help with the rest. Another from Eugene. Final paperwork filed. Your company's legally protected now. No one can ever transfer ownership without multiple verifications. And finally, one from Bailey. Mom's settling into the apartment. Dad's talking about therapy. For all of us, if you're interested. I closed Lexi's journal and looked around my old room. Photos of 2 sisters who used to share secrets and dreams. Now one sat in prison while the other picked up the pieces. My phone buzzed again. Margaret, thank you for being there today. Healing starts with truth. I texted back, thank you for showing me what strength looks like. Standing up, I gathered Lexi's journals. 5 years was a long time, long enough for healing, maybe even forgiveness, but not today. Today was for rebuilding, one piece at a time. As I left my childhood home for the last time, I deleted the draft message I'd been holding on to. I forgive you. Some words needed to be earned, not given. And Lexi had 5 years to earn them. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final investor repayment reports. Every cent had been returned, with interest. The last check, written by Dad from his retirement fund, had cleared yesterday. My phone buzzed, a text from Bailey. "Turn on the news." I clicked the TV on just in time to see Lexi being interviewed from prison. She looked different, humbler, her designer aesthetic replaced by simple prison clothes and no makeup. "I deserved this sentence," she was saying. "My sister wasn't just protecting her business, she was protecting people from me. I see that now." Valeria walked in, carrying coffee. "Is that—" "Yeah," I muted the TV. "First interview since sentencing." "Have you read her letters?" I glanced at the stack of unopened envelopes on my desk. One for every week she'd been inside. "Not yet." "Your mom called," Valeria said softly. "The therapy sessions are helping. Your dad's even starting to smile again." The intercom buzzed. "Miss Horton, Margaret is here to see you." Margaret walked in, looking energized. Behind her came several other former investors. "We have a proposal," she said, sitting down. "Those of us who got our money back, we want to reinvest. Properly this time, in your company." I blinked. "After everything that happened?" "Because of everything that happened," another investor spoke up. "You showed integrity when it mattered most. That's rare in business." My phone buzzed again. Cesar this time. "Saw Lexi's interview. She meant every word. The woman I fell in love with never existed, but maybe the one she's becoming does." A knock at my door revealed Eugene with more papers. "Final legal clearance came through. Your company's protection protocols are ironclad now. No one can ever pull this kind of theft again." I looked at the investors, then at the letters from Lexi, then at the TV where my sister's interview was still playing silently. "Before we discuss investment terms," I said to Margaret, "I need 30 minutes. Alone in my office, I opened the first letter from Lexi. "Dear Livia, prison gives you time to think. Too much time. I think about how I spent my whole life competing with you instead of learning from you, how I chose shortcuts instead of hard work, how I blamed you for being better instead of trying to be better myself." The second letter. "The therapist here says I have narcissistic tendencies, that I saw your success as something I could steal rather than earn. She's right." The third. "Mom visited today. She's different, stronger somehow. Dad too. Maybe we're all growing." Letter after letter showed change, real change. Not excuses or manipulation, but genuine reflection. My phone rang. "Mom." "I saw the interview," she said quietly. "Did you?" "Yes." "She's different, Livia. The entitled girl we created. She's gone. Your father and I were trying to be different too." "I know, Mom. Will you ever forgive us?" I looked at the investors waiting in my lobby, at Valeria managing the day's tasks, at Eugene organizing legal protections for my company's future. "I already have," I replied, "but trust takes longer than forgiveness." "That's fair," Mom said. "Oh, Bailey's here for dinner. We're cooking together now, can you believe it? Would you like to join us?" I thought about declining, about maintaining distance, but healing happens in small steps. "Text me the address," I said. "I'll bring dessert." After hanging up, I buzzed Valeria. "Send the investors in, and call Margaret's financial advisor. We'll need help structuring this properly." As people filed in, I opened my laptop to draft one final email. "Dear Lexi, I saw your interview. I've read your letters. You're right. You deserved consequences. But you also deserve the chance to rebuild, just like I did. Just like our family is doing. I can't forget what happened, but I'm choosing to focus on what's happening now. Mom and Dad are healing. The investors are whole. My business is stronger. And you're finally doing the work to become someone better. I'm not ready to visit yet, but I'm ready to read your letters. Keep writing. Livia." I hit send, then turned to the investors. "Let's talk about building something together. The right way this time." As the meeting began, I glanced at the TV. They were replaying Lexi's final quote. "Success isn't something you take, it's something you earn. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it." I turned back to my future, ready to earn whatever came next. The bottle rolled across our parents' hardwood floor, its prescription label catching the dining room light. My sister Eva lunged for it with unusual speed for someone supposedly battling stage 3 lymphoma, her perfectly manicured nails scraping against the wood as she snatched it up. I'm Freya, and that was the moment I should have known something wasn't right. Just my vitamins, Eva laughed, tucking the bottle into her designer handbag. Her voice carried that familiar, sweet tone that always seemed to hypnotize our family. You know how forgetful I can be with these things. Mom rushed over, placing her hand on Eva's shoulder. Sweetheart, you need to be more careful with your medications, especially now. Her voice cracked on the last word. We were gathered for our weekly family dinner, but tonight was different. Eva had called earlier, insisting everyone needed to be present for an important announcement. Now here we sat, our plates of Mom's lasagna growing cold while Eva dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I don't know how to say this, Eva began, her lower lip trembling. I've been keeping something from all of you for the past few weeks. Dad reached across the table, taking her hand. Whatever it is, Princess, we're here for you. I watched as Eva's eyes welled up with tears. She'd always been the family darling, our father's precious princess, while I was the reliable older sister who could handle herself. 28 years of playing second fiddle had taught me to read Eva's performances like a well-worn script. The doctors found something, she whispered. It's lymphoma, stage 3. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering against the table. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood. Dad's face went ash-gray. Oh, God, no, Mom sobbed, pulling Eva into her arms. Not my baby. I sat there, frozen, as the scene unfolded. Eva detailed her supposed diagnosis, her voice breaking at all the right moments. She mentioned treatments she couldn't afford, specialist appointments that were stretching her finances thin. I didn't want to worry anyone, she sniffled, but I can't do this alone anymore. You won't have to, Dad declared, his voice firm despite his trembling hands. We'll remortgage the house if we have to, whatever you need. I found my voice at last. Which hospital are you being treated at? Eva's eyes met mine just for a second. Something flickered there, something that made my stomach twist. Memorial, she replied smoothly. Dr. Harrison's my oncologist. He's been amazing. My best friend Paris worked at Memorial. I'd never heard of a Dr. Harrison in oncology. We should all go with you to your next appointment, I suggested, keeping my tone gentle. For support. Eva's smile tightened slightly. Oh, I wouldn't want to overwhelm everyone. Besides, the treatments, they're not pretty. I wouldn't want you to see me like that. Freya, Mom cut in sharply, stop interrogating your sister. Can't you see she's been through enough? I fell silent, watching as my parents fussed over Eva. They were already discussing financial arrangements, talking about liquidating their retirement accounts. Eva sat there, accepting their devotion with practiced grace, occasionally wiping away a perfectly timed tear. My phone buzzed, a text from Paris. Drinks tomorrow? Need to talk about something important. Of course we'll help, Mom was saying as I looked up from my phone. We're family. We'll face this together. Eva turned to me, her eyes wide and pleading. I know we haven't always been close, Freya, but I really need my big sister right now. The words hit their mark. Despite my doubts, despite the nagging feeling in my gut, guilt washed over me. What kind of person suspects their sister of lying about cancer? I'm here for you, I heard myself say. Whatever you need. Eva reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her grip was strong, her palm dry and warm, not at all like someone fighting for their life. Later that night, as I helped Mom clean up, I noticed Eva's vitamin bottle had fallen out of her bag again. This time, I managed to catch a glimpse of the label before she snatched it away. It was empty. Completely empty. And the label was partially torn off, showing only a fragment of text that didn't look anything like a prescription. Everything okay? Eva asked, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes sharp as daggers. Yeah, I lied, forcing a smile. Everything's fine. But as I drove home that night, Eva's empty pill bottle and Dr. Harrison from Memorial kept circling in my mind. Something wasn't adding up, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what tomorrow's conversation with Paris would be about. "There's no Dr. Harrison in our oncology department," Paris said, sliding my coffee across the table. "Never has been." The morning sun streamed through the cafe windows, but I felt cold. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, showing Paris my sister's latest post. Eva at some high-end boutique, modeling a new Gucci bag. "Posted 3 hours ago," I said. "Shouldn't she be at chemo?" Paris leaned forward, her nurse's instincts kicking in. "Look, I didn't want to say anything without being sure, but something's definitely wrong here. Cancer patients on aggressive treatment for stage 3 lymphoma don't usually go on shopping sprees. Maybe she's just trying to stay positive." Even as I said it, I knew how desperate I sounded. "Freya?" Paris's voice was gentle but firm. "Yesterday, you told me she claimed to be getting treatment at Memorial. I checked the records. We have no patient by her name." My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "That's impossible. She must be registered under—" My phone buzzed. A message from Sophie, a mutual friend from college. "Hey, weird question. Is Eva really sick? Just saw her at the mall looking pretty healthy for someone doing chemo." I showed Paris the message. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Your parents are talking about remortgaging their house," she reminded me. "If there's even a chance she's lying—" "I know." I pulled my hand away, running it through my hair. "God, I know. But how do I even begin to prove it?" "Start with the basics. What medications did she say she's taking?" I shook my head. She gets weird whenever anyone asks specific questions. Changes the subject or says she doesn't want to burden us with details. "Red flag number 1, Paris counted off on her fingers. "No doctor at Memorial. Red flag 2, shopping sprees during supposed treatment times. Red flag 3, and let's not forget that mysterious empty pill bottle." My phone lit up again, this time with a family group text from Eva. "Feeling blessed to have such amazing support through this journey. Mom and Dad, the first treatment payment went through. Thank you so much." "How much are they giving her?" Paris asked. $5,000 for the first round." My voice cracked. "They took it from their retirement fund." "Okay, that's it." Paris pulled out her own phone. "I'm calling in a favor. My friend Amy's an oncologist at St. Luke's. Let me run this by her, no names mentioned." While Paris stepped outside to make the call, I scrolled through Eva's social media. Between the brave fighter posts and sympathy-gathering status updates, there were shopping hauls, spa days, and restaurant check-ins. No hospital visits, no treatment updates, nothing medical at all. Paris returned, her face grim. "Amy says the timeline doesn't add up. Stage 3 lymphoma patients don't typically maintain such an active social schedule, especially in the first rounds of treatment. The fatigue alone—" "I need to tell my parents," I interrupted. "Wait." Paris grabbed my arm. "You need proof first. Real, solid proof. You know how your family is with Eva. If you go in there with just suspicions, they'll never believe you." She was right. I'd spent my whole life being the jealous older sister in their eyes. Every time I'd called out Eva's manipulations in the past, I'd been shut down, told I was being petty or cruel. "So what do I do?" "Document everything," Paris said firmly. "Screenshots, recordings, timestamps. Follow the money, and most importantly—" She paused, making sure I was looking her in the eye. "Don't let her know you're onto her. The minute she suspects, she'll cover her tracks." My phone buzzed again. "Eva. Sis, can you come with me to my appointment tomorrow? Could really use the support." I showed Paris the message. She raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing. Almost like she knows we're talking about her. "Should I go?" "Absolutely." Paris's eyes gleamed. "But first, let's get you wired up. My brother's a private investigator. He's got some recording equipment you can borrow. If she's lying, let's catch her in the act." I stared at my phone, at Eva's message with its perfectly placed heart emoji. All those years of manipulations, of watching her wrap our family around her finger, of being cast as the bad guy whenever I questioned her stories. Maybe it was finally time for the truth to come out. I typed back, "Of course, sis. Anything for you. What time should I pick you up?" You're doing the right thing, Paris assured me, seeing my hand shake as I set down the phone. If she's scamming your family, they need to know. And if I'm wrong, I whispered. If I'm really just the jealous sister they always said I was? Paris's expression softened. Then you'll know you did your due diligence. But Freya? She waited until I met her gaze. I don't think you're wrong. Not this time. The doctor had to reschedule, Eva announced as she slid into my car's passenger seat. But since you're already here, want to grab lunch? The tiny microphone Paris's brother had given me felt like it was burning a hole in my jacket pocket. Sure. What about your treatment, though? Oh, they'll fit me in next week. Eva waved dismissively, then perked up. Let's try that new place downtown. My treat. I bit back a response about how our parents' money was funding her generosity. Instead, I drove, watching from the corner of my eye as Eva tapped away on her phone, occasionally giggling at messages. Turn here, she suddenly instructed, pointing at a side street that definitely wasn't heading toward any restaurants. This isn't downtown, I said, but followed her direction. Just need to make a quick stop first. She flashed me her trademark smile. Won't take long. We pulled up in front of Nordstrom. Eva practically bounced out of the car, her designer purse swinging. Come on, they're holding something for me. Inside, Eva made a beeline for the luxury handbag section. A sales associate greeted her by name. Ms. Eva, your special order arrived. Fantastic. Eva clapped her hands together. Freya, you have to see this. It's the new limited edition collection. I watched as the associate brought out a bag that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Eva examined it with more attention than I'd ever seen her give her supposed medical documents. Perfect, she breathed, pulling out her wallet. I'll take it. The associate glanced at me as she rang up the sale. Will your sister be getting one too? We only have 3 left. Oh, Freya's not really into designer things, Eva said dismissively. She's more practical. My phone buzzed. A text from Paris. Amy says there's no way a stage 3 lymphoma patient would skip a scheduled treatment. They're too crucial. Eva, I said carefully, maybe we should hold off on the shopping, with all your medical expenses. She froze for a split second before recovering. Don't worry about that. I've been saving up. From where? The words slipped out before I could stop them. You said you had to quit your job because of the treatments. The sales associate looked between us uncomfortably before excusing herself. Why are you being like this? Eva's lower lip trembled. I thought you were here to support me, not interrogate me. I am supporting you. Eva's phone connected to my car's Bluetooth automatically as we walked back, cutting me off mid-sentence. A voice filled the car's speakers. Eva, darling, got your message about the fake doctor's notes. Don't worry, I can get those made up for you by tomorrow. The usual rate? Eva lunged for her phone, but the damage was done. Our eyes met in the sudden silence. That wasn't what it sounded like, she said quickly. Then what was it? My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. It's for work. A project I'm consulting on. You quit your job, remember, because of the cancer treatments you're apparently skipping to go shopping. Eva's face changed. The vulnerable sister act dropped away, replaced by something harder, colder. Pull over. No. Pull over, Freya, or I swear I'll tell Mom and Dad you physically threatened me. We both know who they'll believe. I pulled into a nearby parking lot, my hands shaking. Eva gathered her shopping bags, then turned to me with that sweet smile that had fooled our family for so many years. I know what you're doing, she said softly. Following me, asking all these questions, getting your little nurse friend to snoop around. Stop it. You're only going to hurt yourself. You're stealing from our parents. I'm accepting help from my loving family during a difficult time. She opened the car door. Don't make me destroy you, sis. We both know I can. They remortgaged their house for you. And they did it gladly. Eva stepped out, then leaned down to look at me. Because unlike you, I know how to make people love me. Don't forget that. I watched her walk away, her new designer bag swinging from her arm. My phone buzzed again, another family group text from Eva. Had to cut my appointment short today. The side effects were too much. But blessed to have my big sister with me for support. Love you all. The responses flooded in immediately. Mom, my brave girls. Dad, so proud of you both. Freya, thank you for being there for your sister. I sat there staring at the messages, the recording device heavy in my pocket. Eva had just shown her true colors, but I was the only one who'd seen them. Now I had to prove it to everyone else, before she drained our parents dry. My phone buzzed one final time. A private message from Eva. Remember, sis? I always win. Play it again, Amy said, leaning forward in her office chair. The recording of Eva's Bluetooth mishap filled the room for the third time. I'd spent the past hour explaining everything to Amy, Paris's oncologist friend. She'd agreed to meet me after hours and now sat behind her desk, her expression growing darker with each detail. This is serious, she said, stopping the recording. Medical fraud isn't just morally wrong, it's illegal. I need your help, I replied, sliding Eva's supposed medical documents across the desk. She's using these to convince my parents. Can you verify if they're real? Amy picked up the papers, her professional demeanor cracking as she read. These are terrible forgeries. The letterhead's wrong, the medical terminology is inconsistent, and, she pointed to a signature, this doctor doesn't even exist. My phone rang, Eva's name flashing on the screen. I declined the call. 3 texts and 2 calls in the past hour, I explained. She's getting suspicious. Good. Amy started typing on her computer. That means she's worried. Look at this. She turned the screen toward me, showing a medical database. There's no record of Eva receiving treatment anywhere in the state. Not for lymphoma, not for anything. The phone rang again. Mom this time. I answered, putting it on speaker. Freya, why aren't you answering your sister's calls? She's very upset. I'm at work, Mom. The lie tasted bitter. What's wrong? Eva needs someone to drive her to her treatment tomorrow. Your father and I have that meeting with the bank about the second mortgage. Second mortgage? I shot up from my chair. Mom, you can't... Don't start, Freya. Your sister needs this. The first treatment payment barely covered. Mrs. Schmidt? Amy cut in, her voice carrying the authority of her profession. This is Dr. Amy Lowe. I'm an oncologist at St. Luke's. Could you please put Eva on the phone? I have some questions about her treatment plan. Silence crackled over the line. Then, who is this? Eva's doctor is at Memorial. That's interesting, Amy replied coolly. Because I've checked the medical records for every oncology department in the state. Your daughter isn't registered as a patient anywhere. The phone clicked dead. Well, Amy said, that's telling. My phone immediately lit up with text from Eva. What are you doing? Who was that woman? Answer me now. Then one from Mom. Eva's crying. How could you share her private medical information with strangers? Haven't we taught you anything about family loyalty? They're still believing her, I whispered. Not for long. Amy pulled out a fresh piece of paper. I'm writing an official statement confirming that Eva's documents are forgeries. We're also going to set up a meeting. Your whole family, in my office. Let's see her maintain this lie face-to-face with a real oncologist. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Yes, this is Dr. Harrison from Memorial. The voice was male, obviously disguised. I'm calling about Eva's payment details. Really? I interrupted. Dr. Harrison? The one who doesn't exist? Put my sister on the phone right now. The line went dead. Amy raised an eyebrow. Did she really just try to... Yes. I dropped my head into my hands. She did. Okay. Amy's chair scraped back as she stood. This ends now. I'm calling in a favor with hospital administration. We're setting up a fake consultation for tomorrow. Tell your family Eva has an emergency appointment with a specialist, me. They'll all need to be there. They won't come. Eva will find a way out of it. No, she won't. Amy's voice was steel. Because you're going to tell your parents that Memorial is investigating insurance fraud, and if Eva doesn't show up tomorrow with her entire support system, they'll be launching a criminal investigation. My phone lit up with another family group text from Eva. Such terrible news. My condition has worsened. The doctors say I need more aggressive treatment. Mom, Dad, I hate to ask, but look at that timing, Amy muttered. She's scrambling. I typed out a message to my parents. Emergency meeting tomorrow at St. Luke's Hospital, 2 p.m. Attendance mandatory. Memorial Hospital's fraud department is involved. This is serious. Eva's response was immediate. I'm too sick for meetings. My doctor said. Amy took my phone and typed, This is Dr. Lowe. Attendance is not optional. All medical documentation and payment records must be presented. Failure to appear will result in an immediate criminal investigation. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, Eva replied, Fine, 2 p.m. She'll try to run, I said. Amy smiled grimly. Let her try. I've already contacted Memorial's legal department. One way or another, this charade ends tomorrow. St. Luke's Hospital waiting room felt like a powder keg at 1:55 p.m. Mom and Dad sat rigidly in their chairs, shooting me disapproving looks. Paris stood by the door, preventing any quick exits. Amy was in her office, preparing the final pieces of evidence. And Eva was nowhere to be seen. She's not coming, Mom said, checking her phone for the 100th time. She's too sick to handle this kind of stress. The elevator dinged. Eva walked out, wearing full makeup and designer clothes, not a hair out of place. Behind her was Bodhi, my friend from college who worked at the bank, the same bank my parents had been dealing with for their mortgages. What's he doing here? Eva demanded, pointing at Bodhi. I invited him, I replied, since he handles the mortgage department that's been processing Mom and Dad's loans. Eva's perfectly composed face cracked for just a second. I'm not feeling well. We should reschedule. Sit down, Eva, Paris said firmly, blocking the exit. You can't keep me here. Eva's voice rose. This is harassment. What's going on? Dad stood up. Freya, explain yourself. Amy chose that moment to emerge from her office. I can explain everything, Mr. Schmidt. Please, all of you, come in. Eva made one last attempt to leave. My real doctor advised against any additional consultations. Your real doctor? Amy raised an eyebrow. You mean Dr. Harrison? The one who doesn't exist at Memorial? Mom gasped. Dad's face went pale. That's ridiculous, Eva laughed, but her voice shook. I have all my paperwork right here. She reached into her designer bag. Don't bother, Bodhi spoke up. The bank's fraud department has already flagged those documents as forgeries. Eva's bag dropped to the floor. Papers spilled out, including blank prescription forms and what looked like a rubber stamp with a doctor's signature. Oh, Eva, Mom whispered. What have you done? Nothing. Eva's eyes filled with tears. They're all lying. They're jealous of the attention I'm getting, especially Freya. She's always hated that you love me more. Mrs. Schmidt, Amy interjected, I have proof that your daughter has never received cancer treatment at any hospital in this state. The documents she's been using to secure loans are forgeries. The medications she claimed to be taking don't match any legitimate lymphoma treatment protocol. But the money? Dad's voice cracked. We gave you thousands for treatments. Eva's tears dried instantly. Her face transformed into something I'd only seen glimpses of before. Cold, calculating, cruel. Fine, she spat. You want the truth? I took the money, and you gave it so willingly, didn't you? Poor little Eva, everyone's favorite, finally getting the attention she deserves. We mortgaged our house, Mom sobbed. Twice. And you'd have done it 3 times if I'd asked. Eva laughed hysterically. That's the funny part. You all made it so easy, especially you, Freya, the responsible big sister, always suspicious but never brave enough to stand up to me. Until now. She turned to me, smirking. What changed? Finally grew a spine? I pulled out my phone and played the Bluetooth recording. Eva's smirk faltered as her own words filled the room. Eva, darling, got your message about the fake doctor's notes. I've already submitted this to the police, Bodhi said quietly, along with the fraudulent loan applications. Eva lunged for the door, but Paris caught her arm. Running will only make it worse. You're all pathetic, Eva snarled, struggling against Paris's grip. So desperate for a family drama to rally around that you never questioned anything. The empty pill bottles, the miraculous recoveries, the shopping sprees during supposed chemo sessions. You saw what you wanted to see. How much? Dad's voice was hollow. How much did you take from us? Enough to live the life I deserve, Eva replied. And I'd do it again. Security arrived, followed by 2 police officers. As they led Eva away, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this, Freya. Family is supposed to protect each other. No, I said, watching my sister's mask finally crumble completely. Family is supposed to be honest with each other. After Eva disappeared into the elevator, the room fell silent. Mom collapsed into Dad's arms, sobbing. Bodhi touched my shoulder gently. The bank will work with your parents, he whispered. We'll figure something out. Amy cleared her throat. I've contacted Memorial's legal department. They're pressing charges for impersonating medical personnel. With the bank fraud charges, well, Eva won't be shopping at Nordstrom for quite a while. I watched my parents, their world shattered, and felt a strange mix of victory and heartbreak. The truth was out, but at what cost? You did the right thing, Paris said firmly, reading my expression. Sometimes love means being strong enough to stop someone from hurting themselves and others. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Eva. I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. I turned off my phone. The time for Eva's manipulations was over. Now came the harder part, healing. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Eva's face as she sat across from us, her designer outfit replaced by standard-issue jail clothes. Mom clutched Dad's hand, both looking years older than they had just days ago. I'll pay it all back, Eva said, her voice carrying that familiar manipulative sweetness. Just drop the charges, and we can pretend this never happened. $97,000, Dad replied, his voice trembling. That's how much you stole from us. Our retirement, our savings, our home equity. I was going to invest it, Eva protested. I had plans. The Gucci bags in your apartment tell a different story, Detective Morris interrupted, dropping a thick folder on the table. We found receipts totaling over $60,000 in luxury purchases just from the past 3 months. Ava's eyes darted around the room, searching for sympathy. Finding none, her mask finally cracked completely. You don't understand what it's like, she exploded. Being the pretty one, the charming one, it's exhausting. Everyone expects me to be perfect, successful. I needed to keep up appearances. By pretending to have cancer? I couldn't hold back anymore. By watching Mom and Dad destroy their future for your shopping addiction. Oh, shut up, Freya, Ava sneered. You're loving this, aren't you? Finally getting to be the good daughter? Detective Morris cleared his throat. Let's focus on the charges. We have documented evidence of medical fraud, financial fraud, forgery of official documents. I want to make a deal, Eva interrupted. That's not how this works, the detective replied. The evidence is overwhelming. Multiple counts of fraud, each carrying a potential sentence of... I have dirt on people. Eva's composure crumbled completely. Important people. I can tell you about other scams, bigger ones. Mom started crying softly. Dad just stared at the table, shoulders slumped. I'd like to play something, I said quietly, pulling out my phone. From the day at Nordstrom. Ava's eyes widened as her own voice filled the room, detailing her schemes, bragging about manipulating our parents, threatening to destroy me if I exposed her. That's inadmissible, she shrieked. I didn't consent to being recorded. Single-party consent state, Detective Morris replied calmly. The recording is perfectly legal. You planned this, Eva hissed at me. You set me up. No, Eva, you did this to yourself. The detective opened another folder. We've also received statements from several other families. Apparently, this isn't your first time running a medical scam. Mom's head snapped up. What? 3 other families in the past 2 years, he continued. Different cities, different stories, but same pattern. Fake cancer diagnoses, forged documents, emotional manipulation for financial gain. Eva? Dad's voice cracked. Is this true? Eva's face went through a rapid series of expressions, anger, calculation, fear, before settling on her familiar victim pose. I need help, she whimpered, tears flowing perfectly. I'm sick, just not with cancer. I have a shopping addiction, depression, anxiety. Stop it, I cut in. Just stop. No more manipulation. No more lies. The district attorney is offering a plea deal, Detective Morris said, in exchange for full confession and restitution to all victims. How long? Eva whispered. Minimum of 5 years. Eva lunged across the table, her handcuffs rattling. This is your fault, she screamed at me. I'm your sister. You were supposed to protect me. I am protecting you, I replied steadily. From yourself. The officers pulled Eva back as she continued screaming. Mom, Dad, are you really going to let them do this to me, after everything we've been through? Mom stood up slowly, tears streaming down her face. We love you, Eva, but what you did, we can't protect you from this. Dad? Eva's voice turned small, childlike. Daddy? Your little princess needs you. Dad finally looked up, his face aged a decade. My little princess wouldn't have watched me destroy my life to fund her shopping sprees. Eva's mask shattered completely. Fine, she spat. You want the truth? I never cared about any of you. You were all just ATMs with legs, so pathetically eager to help poor, sick Eva. You deserve to be scammed. The detective nodded to the officers, who began leading Eva away. I hate you all, she shrieked as they pulled her toward the door. Especially you, Freya. I'll make you pay for this. As her screams faded down the hallway, Mom collapsed into Dad's arms. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Detective Morris. You did good, he said quietly. It's not easy standing up to family, but you probably saved your parents from complete financial ruin. What happens now? I asked. She'll face the consequences of her actions, he replied, and hopefully get the help she actually needs. I watched my parents holding each other, their world completely shattered, and wondered if anything would ever be the same again. But at least now we could start rebuilding on a foundation of truth, not lies. The courtroom fell silent as Eva stood for sentencing. 3 months had passed since her arrest, and the toll was visible. Her designer clothes were replaced by a modest suit, her perfectly styled hair now plain and unstyled. Before I deliver the sentence, Judge Martinez said, would any of the victims like to make a statement? Mom and Dad stayed seated, but I stood. Eva's eyes locked onto mine, burning with hatred. Your Honor, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. My sister isn't just a criminal. She's someone who systematically destroyed the lives of people who loved her. Our parents lost their retirement, their home equity, and their dignity. But they lost something even more valuable, their trust in family. Other victims stood up. A middle-aged woman from Cincinnati spoke about remortgaging her house to help Eva, who'd posed as a sick co-worker. An elderly man from Detroit described emptying his savings for Eva's fake leukemia treatments. The defendant has shown a pattern of sophisticated, premeditated fraud, the prosecutor stated. She specifically targeted vulnerable people, exploiting their compassion for financial gain. Eva's lawyer stood. My client recognizes the severity of her actions. She's prepared to make full restitution. With what money? I interrupted, earning a sharp look from the judge. She spent it all on luxury items. Ms. Bennett, Eva's lawyer continued smoothly, has agreed to surrender all assets for liquidation. Additionally, she's been diagnosed with several mental health conditions that contributed to her actions. Eva dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I recognized the performance, the subtle trembling lip, the perfectly timed sniff. Would the defendant like to make a statement? Judge Martinez asked. Eva rose, her handcuffs clinking. Your Honor, I'm deeply ashamed of my actions. I lost myself in a spiral of addiction and desperation. My sister Freya tried to stop me, but I wouldn't listen. I betrayed everyone who loved me, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. I felt Mom stiffen beside me. This was new. Eva had never admitted guilt before, never acknowledged my attempts to help. The judge studied Eva for a long moment. Ms. Bennett, your crimes were not just financial. You exploited one of humanity's most basic instincts, the desire to help sick loved ones. You didn't just steal money, you stole trust, hope, and faith in human goodness. Eva's facade cracked slightly. Furthermore, the judge continued, your pattern of behavior shows careful planning and manipulation. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a calculated series of cons targeting multiple victims across state lines. The prosecutor stood again. Your Honor, we've also discovered additional victims who've come forward. Enough! Eva suddenly screamed, her mask shattering completely. You want to know the truth? Fine. They were all stupid, so desperate to play hero that they threw their money at me. And you? She whirled to face me. You self-righteous bitch! You ruined everything! Ms. Bennett, the judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Control yourself or you'll be removed. Eva's lawyer tried to calm her, but she shrugged him off. You think this will stop me? She snarled. I'll find new victims. There's always someone stupid enough to believe a sad story. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. The judge's face hardened. Thank you, Ms. Bennett, for making my decision easier. I sentence you to 8 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are ordered to make full restitution to all victims, and you are barred from handling any financial transactions for others during your supervised release. Eva lunged toward me, but the bailiffs caught her. I'll get you for this, Freya. You think prison will hold me? They dragged her away, her threats echoing down the hallway. Mom broke down crying. Dad just sat there looking shell-shocked. It's over, Paris whispered, squeezing my hand. She can't hurt anyone else now. Bodhi approached with some papers. The banks agreed to restructure your parents' loans, he told Dad. We'll work something out. Amy, who'd testified about the medical fraud, joined us. I've started a support group for families affected by medical fraud. You're all welcome to join. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. How does it feel to send your sister to prison? Did you suspect her all along? What would you say to other families facing similar situations? I stopped on the courthouse steps. I'd tell them that real love means being strong enough to stop someone you care about from hurting others and themselves. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. Dad put his arm around me for the first time since this all began. We're proud of you, Freya. We should have listened to you years ago. Mom wiped her eyes. We have a lot of healing to do, as a family. I watched the police van carrying Eva drive away, feeling not triumph, but a deep, aching sadness for what could have been. But at least now the healing could begin, not just for our family, but for all the lives Eva had touched with her lies. And that's why I started the Truth in Medical Claims Foundation, I concluded, looking out at the packed auditorium. Because sometimes the biggest frauds come from those we trust the most. The audience applauded as I stepped away from the podium. Amy joined me on stage, carrying a stack of pamphlets about medical fraud awareness. Questions? She asked the crowd. A woman stood up, clutching a tissue. My daughter's been asking for money for treatments, but something feels off. I'm afraid to question her because, what if I'm wrong? That fear is exactly what fraudsters count on, I replied. But love doesn't mean blind trust. It means caring enough to verify. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison counselor. Eva's requesting another family session. Your choice if you want to attend. I slipped the phone back into my pocket as more hands rose with questions. Paris, manning the registration table, caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. We'd already helped identify 3 potential fraud cases this week alone. After the session, Mom and Dad waited by the entrance. They looked different now, stronger, more clear-eyed. The support group had helped tremendously. Good session, Dad said, hugging me, though I still flinch every time you tell our story. That's why it needs telling, Mom added. We got an interesting letter today. She pulled out an envelope with the prison stamp. Eva's written another apology. Her 4th this month, I noted, right before her parole hearing. She seems different this time, Mom said hopefully. The counselor says, Mom, I kept my voice gentle. Remember what we learned in therapy. Eva needs to prove change through actions, not words. Bodhi appeared, carrying coffee for everyone. The Foundation's financial reports are ready, he said. We've helped recover over $2 million in fraudulent medical claims this quarter. Speaking of financial news, Dad added, we made the final payment on the house today. No more second mortgage. My throat tightened. Those extra mortgage payments had nearly bankrupted them, but they'd refused to let me help. Rebuilding on our own terms, they'd insisted. Dr. Lowe? A young man approached our group looking nervous. My brother's been showing us medical bills for his treatments, but when I called the hospital... Come with me, Amy said kindly, leading him toward her office. Another potential case, another family we might be able to help before it was too late. Paris joined us, holding up her phone. You're trending again. That interview you did about recognizing emotional manipulation in families really struck a chord. As long as it helps people, I said. That's all that matters. Speaking of helping people, Bodhi interjected. The bank's new fraud detection program caught 3 cases this week, all using the same tactics Eva used. Mom flinched at Eva's name, but her voice was steady. At least some good came from our experience. We're helping other families avoid what we went through. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the prison counselor. Eva's made progress, but she's still deflecting responsibility. Thought you should know before deciding about the family session. Dad noticed my expression. Eva? I nodded. She wants to meet. What are you going to do? Mom asked. I'll go, I decided. Not because I believe she's changed, but because I need her to understand something. Our foundation isn't about revenge. It's about prevention, about turning pain into purpose. Paris squeezed my shoulder. Want me to come with you? No. I smiled at my friend who'd stood by me through everything. I need to do this alone. The afternoon sun streamed through the foundation's windows, illuminating the wall of thank you letters from families we'd helped. Each one represented a story like ours, but with a different ending. One where the truth came out before lives were destroyed. Ready for the support group session? Amy asked, returning from her office. We have 3 new families joining today. I looked at my parents, now volunteers who shared their experience to help others. At Paris and Amy, who'd helped expose the truth. At Bodhi, whose bank now led the industry in fraud prevention. You know what Eva never understood? I said, gathering my materials for the support group. Real love isn't about getting, it's about giving, about helping others avoid the traps we fell into. Mom wiped away a tear. You turned our family's darkest moment into light for others. No, I corrected her. We did it together, because that's what real family does. We help each other grow stronger, even from our deepest wounds. As we headed to the support group room, I felt not the weight of Eva's betrayal, but the lightness of purpose. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in life's hardest lessons. We'd learned ours. Now it was time to help others learn theirs.